kushinda hao alifungwa kanisa kutoka kwake nyumbani au akichungwa na chief akapeana shamba ndio yeye kanisa. Akaambiwa hata hawezi akaenda kwa kanisa kutoka kwake nyumbani nusu maili akapeana shamba ndio yeye kanisa. Na hata walio hapo. Na wakati ng'ombe ilikuwa ikichukuliwa, kuna kitu kimoja nataka niwaambie. Hii barua iliandikwa na gavana. Na wakati ng'ombe ilikuwa ikichukuliwa, kuna kitu kimoja baba yangu. Hii barua iliandikwa na gavana, akaichukua hiyo barua akapelekea mtu anaitwa baba yangu, akachukua hiyo barua akapelekea kiongozi wetu ambao ndio akapelekea washinda hao alikwenda kwa kanisa hiyo barua akapelekea kiongozi wetu akaambiwa hata hawezi akaenda kwa kanisa kutoka kwake nyumbani. Na kina mutuma twendeti tukamuone roya yetu alikuwa anaitwa Ngandi Mwalonzi. Na kina mutuma twendeti tukamuone roya yetu alikuwa anaitwa Ngandi. Ngandi alipopata barua hiyo barua, sababu wakati huo Kenyatta alikuwa ng'ambo. Ngandi alipopata barua moja imewahi kutoka, sababu wakati huo Kenyatta alikuwa ng'ambo, itapika ng'ambo. Akamwambia hakuna barua moja imewahi kutoka Kenya ikapika Kenyatta wakati yenu chama itapika ng'ambo. Ni kau Kenyatta wakati huo kulikuwa chama inaitwa K ndio ilikuwa ya kwanza. Na kulikuwa na kaseti moja ilikuwa inaitwa Jicho ndio ilikuwa Waafrika wanasoma sana. Hiyo barua ilipopika ng'ambo, Kenyatta alienda akaipata. Na akabakia simu akawaambia marwa manyu nini tete na ngarango na ngaitambugu. Na ndina mundu wakutezereri yako tarambugu. Malikia aliposikia hiyo maneno akatuma tena ujumbe. Kwa nini ngaba na ng'ombe za Wakamba zinachukuliwa? Watu wakaanza wakapigwa karibu kumalizwa shauri ya ng'ombe. Kwa hivyo tunaomba human rights na wale wengine na hasa sana na kina Marombe vile mlitufanyia, Mungu awasaidie maisha na waongezee. Najua hata nyinyi ndio mlipekania Maumau na mtasiti na Mungu atawaongezea masiku. Na ukitoka hapa nataka uende ukasome kitabu cha Jupu. Uone kule kujipalisha na kujipandisha. Ati unajifanya wewe ni mkubwa. Uone vile mwisho wako takuwa. Usome kitabu cha Jupu mlango wa 20 kuanzia mstari wa 4 mpaka wa 11 na ukiwa na simu yako chukua usome na uone. Tafadhali sisi wananchi wa Kenya tuache kuondoa mkoroni na tupate mkoroni mambo leo. Tuache kuondoa mkoroni na tupate mkoroni mambo leo. Na yale unafanyia watu yako na wewe jua siku moja utafanyiwa. Mungu wako na Mungu halali kitu kaengeri. Mungu akubariki sana na akuongezee siku. Marombe, hebu simama. Na mnaona huyu mzee huyu? Si kijana ni mzee. Hao watu wamefanya kazi mingi sana. Tunawaomba mshikane na seneti muone watu wa Mwindi Mbingu wamepatiwa haki yao. Asanteni sana na Mungu awabariki na walinde na waneemeshe. Asanteni sana.
Asante Mzee Luka. Indeed, the impact of atrocities committed by colonialists continue to be felt. And he has said tunataka ng'ombe zetu. In other words, they need reparation, right? So the message has gotten home. Thank you very much. So we continue on that note, also acknowledging that atrocities continue and injustices continue to happen. And so we will be listening in from Swale Gidinji, who is a representative from Ndula Resource Center. He'll be sharing with us on corporate injustices. Welcome, Swale.
Thank you. Right Honorable Prime Minister, all protocols respectfully observed. Naitwa Swale Gidinji. Hamjambo. Mimi nitazungumza tu mambo matatu. Nafanya kazi na shirika linaitwa Ndula Resource Center ambalo liko karibu sana na boma ya Shujaa Mzee Geto Kahengeri. Kila asubuhi Geto akiamka kikohoa, sisi usikia, tunaamka tunajua kumekucha. Sasa mimi nitazungumza jambo la kwanza, uhusiano kati ya dhulma ambazo zinaendeleshwa na makampuni makubwa ya kigeni na mapambano ya Maumau ambao siku ya leo tunasherehekea. Wakati Maumau walienda msituni kupigania uhuru na mashamba, na hadi tulipopata uhuru 1963, sisi kama Ndula Resource Center tunaona kwamba bado ukoloni ambao Maumau walipigania bado hujaisha bado, kwa sababu mambo ya msingi yale ambao Maumau wazee wetu ilifanya waende msituni wakaumia sana, wakapoteza ujana wao, mali yao na familia yao, mpaka leo hii yanaendelezwa, lakini yanaendelezwa kwa njia tofauti sana. Yanaendelezwa through hizi kampuni za kigeni ambazo zina milki ardhi ile yenye rutuba nyingi zaidi na ekari nyingi kabisa, hasa upande wa Kiambu, Murang'a, pia upande wa Nandi ambapo kwa Italela amezungumza, pia upande wa Coast Province, na kule kwetu zile kampuni mbili ni kampuni ya Kakuzi na kampuni ya Del Monte. Na sisi tunasema kwamba hiyo ndio ile colonial legacy in the context of colonial agriculture as we see it today, ndio zile dhulma ambazo zinatuumiza sana. Na sana ya kwanza ni mambo na mashamba. Kwamba Maumau walipopata uhuru tuliambiwa sasa hakuna cha bure, kwamba watu wanunue ardhi kwa anayependa kuuza na anayependa kununua. Na hiyo ilifanywa Afrika wengi sana mpaka leo wakae kama wachuchumaji, squatters. Alafu pakatokea element ingine ya internally displaced persons ambao tuko na wengi sana upande wa Kakuzi. Na tumekuwa tukipambana sana kuhakikisha kwamba ile vita wazee wetu walianzisha, sisi tunaendelesha ili kuhakikisha kwamba hizi kampuni kubwa zimerelease yale mashamba ambayo walinyakua kutoka kwa wanaishi katika hali ya umaskini sana mpaka siku ya leo. Na katika hayo mapambano tulienda National Land Commission na tulipata award tarehe 1 mwezi wa 3 2019, ambayo ilisema ya kwamba Kakuzi iachilie mashamba yote ya raia ama ya umma ambayo imekalia, ambao ni maelfu ya maekari. Na tulipopata hiyo award, ni jambo la kusikitisha sana, hadi wa leo that award has never been implemented because Kakuzi PLC has been using the courts to ensure that award is never implemented. Na kwa hivyo action point ya leo katika mambo ya unyakuzi wa mashamba ambayo yanamilikiwa na haya makampuni makubwa ni kuomba wazalendo wote na stakeholders walio hapa tuungane pamoja kuhakikisha kwamba that award ya 1 March 2019 is implemented in totality. Na ya pili ni kwamba National Land Commission iresume kusikiza makesi ya historical land injustices ambayo yamekwama tangu November tarehe 1 2018. Sisi ni Maumau wadogo na tuko na hiyo spirit kuhakikisha kwamba kazi iliyobaki we are going to finish together ili watu wakae na raha. Jambo la pili kuhusu dhulma ni masuala ya watu kunyanyaswa. Mulisikia wakati tulipopeleka kesi nchi ya ng'ambo pamoja na Kenya Human Rights Commission mwaka 2019, tuliweza kupata award kwa niaba ya Wakenya 85 ambao walipewa takriban ridhaa ya shilingi milioni 762. Hizi pesa zilikuwa ni za kulipa ridhaa wale wenzetu kutoka Kakuzi ambao walikuwa wamebakwa, na nimesikia mwenzetu akizungumzia swala la kubakwa kwa njia ya juu sana, waliopigwa na maaskari wa Kakuzi walipata hiyo ridhaa. Na zaidi ya hiyo pia tuliweza kupata what we call community reparations, ambazo ni mikakati ambao Kakuzi ilisema kati ya miaka 3 itaweza kufanyia jamii ili kwa njia ya kuwapatia kitu kinaitwa satisfaction. Though sisi hatukuridhika na hiyo community reparation program kwa sababu inakuja in the form of CSR. There's no way CSR projects can replace restorative and reparative justice mechanism. Those are two different things. Kwa hivyo sisi tumekataa kuengage na hiyo framework until they acknowledge that indeed waliweza kudhulumu watu wetu na wamedhulumu jamii zetu muda mrefu, waweze kuwapatia haki, lakini sio zawadi. We don't want that, and our communities are very, very serious about that. Jambo la tatu ni kwamba kila mara tukizungumza kuhusu dhulma za wafanyikazi, tunaambiwa tunyamaze. Hizi kampuni zinalipa kodi na ushuru mkubwa sana kwa serikali. Kodi na ushuru ambao hauna faida yoyote katika wananchi. Yes, they say they pay billions in terms of taxes, they say they create employment, lakini ile ajira ambao wanapatia watu wetu ni ajira ya mapato ya chini sana, poverty wages. Kwa hivyo sisi tumesema tunataka Wakenya wapewe haki kulingana na jasho lao. Equal pay for equal work done, so that waweze kujiendeleza kiuchumi na kuendeleza familia yao, lakini isiwe their motto is together we grow and then they leave a whole community behind. Sehemu ya pili nitasema ni tukio gani matatu muhimu ambao sisi kama Ndula tukishirikiana na jamii za Kakuzi na Del Monte tumefanya. Ya kwanza nimesema ni hiyo filing of historical land injustices pale National Land Commission na tukapata award. Ya pili ni hiyo kesi ambao tulipeleka katika koti ya haki kule Britain, tukapata award ya around 1 billion. Na ya tatu ni, na ndio muhimu sana, ni kupatia jamii zetu nguvu pamoja na sauti waweze kujitetea wao wenyewe ili waweze kujikomboa. Na katika hiyo safari nashukuru sana, na naona leo ni siku ya kukutana tena mashujaa wa kitambo. Nakumbuka mwaka 2002 Madam Jennifer Miano alitoka Nairobi, alikuwa senior program officer Kenya Human Rights Commission. She drove all the way to Ndula to try and rescue us from police impunity ambao hawakuwa na kubali kwamba we can stand up against a multinational company. So heko nimefurahi sana kukuona Madam Jennifer. Baadaye kumekuwa na wazalendo wengi sana ambao wamekuja kutusupport katika hii struggle. Pia Right Honorable Prime Minister, there's something that you did, maybe you may not remember. Tulikuja katika ofisi yako mwaka wa 2010 tukiwa na lalamishi kwamba mabepari fulani walikuwa wanataka kunyakua Ndula Kengen Power Station, and we instructed your then PS Mohamed Isahakia to come and listen to the Ndula community and ensure that the rights of the community are protected. I'm happy to say that today that power station is still government property, and those who wanted to grab it, they were not able to do it. So tunakushukuru sana. Na nyinyi nyote mlio hapa, mapambano yanataka tushikane na tuwe focused, na hutachagua ni mapambano gani utajihusisha nayo, ni gani utasahau. Na ndio kwa mfano yale yote yameongewa na Mutere, yakaongewa na Koitalel, yakaongolewa na Muidibingu, yakaongelewa na Washiro wa Heire. Nafikiri hayo yote ni mambo ambayo tukishikana sisi pamoja tutaweza. Mwisho kabisa, Paul Mwite, thank you so much. You know, we were in a lot of hot soup 2 years ago, and you engaged the DCI and they ran away. Thank you. Daniel Kamau and all the rest. Pongezi. Viva Mau Mau. Viva.
Asante sana Bwana Saleh for that very comprehensive presentation around how we've been able to continue fighting corporate impunity by some of the big multinational companies. Many of you here may think, violations are always committed by the government, but as you can see from Swale's remarks, he's shown you that we have big multinational corporations in Kenya that continue to commit serious violations. Distinguished guests, kindly permit us to go to the next segment of the program. That is the Mau Mau's journey in their quest for justice. And to start us off, allow me to invite Ms. Wanjiku Miano. She was the former Kenya Executive Director for the Kenya Human Rights Commission between the year 2003 and 2006. And she's kindly permit me to invite her to tell us about the journey of the Mau Mau. Karibu, Wanjiku. Makofi kwake akikuja.
Hamjambo nyote. Hamjambo tena. Ningependa kwanza niseme najivunia lugha ya Kiswahili. Miezi kadhaa nafikiria iliyopita, Kiswahili sio lugha tu ya taifa, lakini ni lugha ya kimataifa. Kwa hivyo ningependa kujivunia kwa njia ya kuweza kuongea na kujieleza kwa hii lugha leo. Hata kama pengine mtaniwia radhi, nitaweza kuchanganya ambapo sitaweza haswa kueleza hisia zangu kikamilifu kwa Kiswahili. Kwa hivyo kwanza ningependa kutambua wageni wetu wote wa heshima, nikianza na mashujaa wetu wa Maumau, wake kwa waume. Maumau mashujaa hoye! Maumau mashujaa hoye! Nikifuatia na Honorable Raila Odinga. Pia ningependa kumtambua mwenyekiti wa tume, shirika la tume la kutetea haki za binadamu, Bwana Davida Lamba, Bwana Geto Kahengeri. Ningependa pia kumtambua Bwana Davis Malambe ambaye kwa sasa ni mkurugenzi katika hiyo tume ambayo ni shirika la kutetea haki za kibinadamu. Ningependa pia kumtambua former governor Makueni, Dr. Professor Kivutha Kibwana. Ningependa pia kumtambua Professor Yashpal Gai ambaye alipigania tuwe na katiba mpya ambayo yuko hapa leo. Ningependa pia kumtambua Bwana Khelef Khalifa wa Pwani Rights, nafikiria Muhuri, Muslims for Human Rights, ambaye ako na sisi hapa, na wengine wengi ambao wako hapa leo wanawakilisha mashirika mbalimbali ya kutetea haki za kibinadamu. Nikianza niseme hivi, nafurahi sana kwamba miaka 20 iliyopita leo tunajivunia kuvuna matunda kwa juhudi ambazo kwanza hatukuamini kwamba zingefua dafu. Manake katika nyakati zile zilikuwa ngumu katika mambo ya utetezi wa haki za binadamu. Lakini nina furaha sana leo kuona kwamba hatukupiga tu hatua na ile kesi tulioanza mwaka wa 2002 tukiongozwa na the former Chief Justice Dr. Willy Mutunga na pia Senior Counsel Mr. Paul Mwite. Lakini mbali na hiyo kesi muliweza kupata fidia, na zaidi ya kupata fidia ikasemekana kwamba kutawekwa jiwe la makumbusho hapa Nairobi. Sijui kama tumepiga pia hiyo hatua, lakini nafikiria wengi wetu tukawa sasa na ujasiri wa kujitoa mahali tulikuwa tumejificha na tukaanza kushiriki kikamilifu katika hizi juhudi za kutambua Maumau. Sasa nije kwa mambo manne ambayo ningependa kusema. Yangu sio matatu ambayo mnajua, lakini yangu yatakuwa ni mambo manne. La kwanza ni kusema kwamba chanzo cha juhudi za kupigania mambo ya ukweli, haki na maridhiano yalianza na hili shirika la tume la kutetea haki za binadamu, Kenya Human Rights, mwaka hivi wa 2001. That is when the whole initiative started of trying to see whether a Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission would be established in this country. Kwa hivyo tukaanza shughuli mbalimbali, tukawa na vikao na washikadau mbalimbali, na tukaweza kujadili kwamba kama kweli tutakuwa na haki, ukweli na maridhiano, lazima tuanze na historia yetu ambayo tuliamini iliwapa nguvu wale wadhalimu wapya kuweza kukiuka haki. Na kama hatungeangazia hili swala la dhulma dhidi ya Maumau au wapiganiaji wa ukombozi wa nchi, tungekuwa hatungefaulu katika ile juhudi. Therefore we decided that we would start where it all began, and that was with the crimes against humanity against the Maumau people, both men, women and children. Na hivyo ndivyo kuanza utafiti, upelelezi, tukashikana na watu mbalimbali ambao wengine walikuwa hapa Kenya na wengine walikuwa Uingereza, na tukaweza kuzungumzia ni jinsi gani tungeweza kuweka juhudi zetu pamoja tuweze kuwa na kesi ambayo itawafanya Waingereza kwanza wakubali kwamba walifanya makosa, na zaidi ya kufanya makosa waweze kufidia wale ambao Wakenya ambao waliokosewa katika swala la kupigania haki na kupigania ukombozi wa nchi yao, na tukasema hilo lilikuwa ni jambo halali. Nafikiria Senior Counsel Paul Mwite ataweza kuangazia zaidi kuhusu hiyo kesi, lakini tulifanya utafiti. Wengine na waona hawako, watu kama Mikewa Ogada alitusaidia sana katika ule utafiti wa kwanza, yani the foundational work towards the Mau Mau reparations case. Na nafurahia kwamba hizo juhudi zinaweza kuonekana leo katika mambo mbalimbali ambayo tungesema yanaonyesha ni ishara kwamba tuliweza kufauli katika hiyo kazi. Nikiendelea zaidi kuangazia yale mambo mengine, ni kwamba kitu najiuliza ni mambo gani ambayo tumeweza kujifunza kutokana na hii juhudi ya kupigania haki za Mau Mau, haki ya wakombozi wa nchi. Ya kwanza kwangu ni kwamba usije ukapuuza jambo dogo. Ukisikia kwamba kweli haki yako imekiukwa, nafikiria una haki ya kuweza kujiunga na wengine na kuweza kupigania hiyo haki. Usije ukapuuza. Kubalie niongee na lugha ya mama kwamba odumorito no uriotare mwambiririe neguo. Tuliona kwamba hili jambo ni gumu sana, that it was very difficult to commence an enterprise of this magnitude, lakini tuliweza baadaye kushikana na wengine kufanya nini? Kufaulu. Kwa hivyo tusije tukapuuza juhudi, hata kama imeanza katika swala tu au hoja tu. Tukishikana na wengine tunaweza kufanya nini? Tunaweza kufaulu. Kwa hivyo kwangu hilo ni jambo moja ambalo nimenifunza, tusije tukapuuza hiyo nguvu yako we mwenyewe na nguvu ya wale wengine. Anza tu na uendelee. La pili ni kwamba Mau Mau wametufunza kwanza ni muhimu sana kuweza kupinga udhalimu. You rise up and resist. Susikae tu pale tukisema kwamba tumedhulumiwa. Ni nini hicho tunaweza tukafanya au tukasema tukapingana na ule udhalimu? Na zaidi ya kupingana, tukae wakakamavu. Tumesikia kwamba mzee Bwana Getu Kahengeri ni ako na zaidi ya miaka 90, lakini bado yupo hapa na sisi akitupa motisha ya kuendelea. Kwa hivyo tuwajua kwamba mapambano bado. Swale wa Ndula Human Rights ametueleza kwamba bado wanaendelea kupigania haki za mashamba, na tuwajua kwamba Mau Mau waliweza kupinga udhalimu kwa sababu mashamba yao yalikuwa yamenyakuliwa na kwa sababu hawakuwa na uhuru. Na ni jambo tunaendelea kuona kwamba tunapigania, na haswa limeangaziwa vizuri na Swale wa Ndula Human Rights Commission, haki na mashamba. Kwa hivyo lazima tuweze kuwa na ule ujasiri wa kupinga na kuweza kuwa wakakamavu katika ile safari ya kupigania haki. Jambo lile lingine mimi ambalo nimejifundisha kutokana na Mau Mau ni kwamba hili tukiona wengine ambao wanapigania haki, hata kama hawatafaulu, hata kama watafaulu, hilo jambo linatupa motisha kwamba hata sisi wenyewe tunaweza tukapigania haki zetu. Na hivyo ndivyo hili vuguvugu la Mau Mau lilifanya. Walipopigania haki na wakaweza kuondoa mkoloni, zile vuguvugu zingine katika Afrika yote ziliweza kupawa motisha na nguvu na wakaendelea, including the Black Civil Rights Movement in America. They were greatly inspired by the Mau Mau. Tafadhali tuende tusome hiyo historia. Kwa hivyo Mau Mau, the Mau Mau is a force to reckon with, na imetupatia motisha hata sisi ambao tuko wa hii karne na pengine wale wengine wadogo, present and future generations, tutaendelea kupata motisha kutokana na Mau Mau na jinsi walivyozitatiti katika kukomboa nchi. So they have inspired not only citizens in this country to continuously fight for their freedoms, but citizens of other countries. Lile jambo lingine ningesema ni kwamba kwa kupigania fidia Maumau kufidiwa na kujulikana not as an outlawed movement, not as outlaws or a criminalized movement, tumeweza kurudisha hadhi ya nani shujaa katika nchi. Na nikubalia niseme hili, watu wengi tunajua wametuzwa wakati tuko na siku kama za Mashujaa Day ama Jamhuri Day ama Mashujaa Day, na unapata mtu anapata Elder of the Burning Spear na zinginezo, na tunaulizana hawa watu wanapata kutuzwa jinsi gani? Na kwa miaka mingi hatukuwa tunasikia watu ambao wanastahili wanatuzwa. But I think what the Mau Mau, the struggle for recognition of the Mau Mau in the country has done, it has brought us to begin to reflect on who are our heroes. Nani shujaa kati yetu? Shujaa ni mtu ambaye anaiba mabilioni ya pesa, halafu kesho mnamtukuza kama mwekezaji, mwekezaji shujaa ama maarufu nchini. Ama shujaa ni mtu ambaye anajitolea kwa hali na mali na kupigania ukombozi sio wake tu na hana ubinafsi, lakini wale watu wengine wote na nchi yake. So let us reflect deeply about the whole issue of shujaa. I know it's a continuing conversation. Ni mjadala ambao unaendelea katika nyanja zingine kuhusu ni nani shujaa halisi katika nchi yetu. So we now recognize who our true heroes and heroines are. Pia niseme jambo hili kama mwanamke, kwa muda mrefu tumeweza kuangalia shujaa ni kama mwanaume, lakini shujaa si mwanamke. Lakini leo hii tunajua kwamba pia mashujaa wapo ambao ni wanawake, kama hayati Field Marshal Muthoni Kirima aliyezikwa kama mwezi mmoja uliopita. Na nimefurahi kusikia yule mama ambaye alikuwa hapa ambaye anawakilisha the Grace Foundation kwamba lazima tuwatambue akina mama kati yetu waliodhulumiwa, because their needs are altogether different from the needs of the other group. Kwa hivyo lazima pia tuwatambue akina mama shujaa kati yetu au miongoni mwetu. Nikimalizia ningependa kusema hili jambo. Niliweza kuangalia mtandao na nilikuwa natafuta maana ya jina Mau Mau, na nikapata kwamba hakuna yeyote ambaye ameweza kuelezea Mau Mau na ile jinsi halisi tunayoielewa. Na nikajiuliza, kweli pia katika mambo ya kidijitali kuna uhaki? Sisi kama watetezi wa haki za binadamu tunaweza kufanyaje tuingie pale katika mtandao na kuweza kueleza hii historia sisi wenyewe ambao ndio wenye historia ya Mau Mau? Manake kuna yule aliyekuwa hapa aliyesema hapa awali kwamba tusipochunga hii historia itaandikwa na wengine na wataiandika kulingana na jinsi wao wanavyoielewa. Niliangalia pia pale katika mtandao the Black History Month, na niliona kwamba wale wako kipao mbele, na sio kwa ubaya, I'm not being racist, ni wazungu wawili ambao wamepeana historia ya Mau Mau. Sijapata Geto Kehengeri pale akitajwa, sijapata juhudi za Senior Counsel Paul Mwite pale zikitajwa, na wengineo ambao tunajua ni wa hapa nchini wakitajwa. Kwa hivyo tutawezaje kuliziba hilo pengo kama watetezi wa haki na kama Mau Mau Foundation, so that we can own our own stories, we can own our own histories and tell those histories? Manake tukiruhusu wale ambao wanamiliki hizo mbinu za mawasiliano waeleze hayo mambo, hakuna siku tutaweza kusimama na ushujaa wetu na pride yetu kuweza kusema nini, kuweza kusema kuhadithia mambo yetu. So I think it is something that we need to look into. Finally, nimemwona mtu ambaye ameweza kupigania sana mambo ya haki ya elimu. Sijui kama Boaz ako hapa. Na nilikuwa najiuliza, katika hii curriculum ya CBC tumeweza kuhakikisha kwamba historia kama hii, it's very rich history for our country, iko katika vitabu vyetu vya kihistoria, ambapo watoto hawatakuwa wakisoma kuhusu David Livingstone, mimi mwenyewe nilivyosoma, lakini wanasoma kuhusu mashujaa, Field Marshal Muthoni, mashujaa yetu Kahengeri na wengineo ambao wametuacha. Kwa hivyo kama hakuna juhudi kama hizo, tafadhali tufanye nini tuweze kuhakikisha historia kwa sasa inaweza kueleza kuhusu Mau na yote yaliyotutokea kulingana na sisi wenyewe. Kwa hivyo nikimalizia nitasema tu niko na furaha kuweza kuona tumevuna matunda kweli, na siku ya leo ni ishara ya uvunaji wa hayo matunda, na tunasema kwamba safari bado inaendelea, mapambano yanaendelea, na huu sio mwisho. Asanteni sana.
Asante sana Wanjiku Miano for those powerful and inspiring reflections on the Mau Mau's journey in their quest for justice. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to, in absentia, acknowledge three personalities who would have loved to be here, but for circumstances beyond their control, they are unable to be here. The first person that I want to acknowledge is Muthoni Wanyeki, KHRC Executive Director, 2007 to 2011, and now Regional Director for the Open Society Foundation. The second person is Atsango Chisoni, who was Executive Director from 2011 to 2015. And lastly, Mr. George Morara, who now works with the U.S. Embassy, but was at one point in time working with the Kenya Human Rights Commission. These three personalities played a very important role in the Mau Mau's quest for justice in the different capacities that they served while at the Kenya Human Rights Commission. So, and I would like us to all especially, acknowledge the important role they played to see our heroes here with us today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would want to now take this opportunity to invite Senior Counsel Paul Mwite to share with us his reflections. Karibuni, Senior.
Thank you. Mashujaa Mau Mau members, wana member wa Mau Mau War Veterans Association. Muriega. Aria makuhota kurugama matikirugame ni tuigue karwimbo karia kanyu twathiaga tukenete tugacu rugendo rwitu rwari rwe tugithie na tugicoka. Ni wega muno ni ngatho. Kwanza muniruhusu nishukuru sana tume ya Kenya Human Rights Commission kwa sababu ya idea yao ya kusupport Mau Mau Foundation. Brilliant idea, mchukue pongezi sana. And I have no doubts it will succeed because I know the thoroughness with which you do your work. Ya pili, muniruhusu nitoe shukrani, acknowledgements. This is with regard to the Mau Mau case. Kwanza, to Kenya Human Rights Commission. Without their participation, I have no doubts we may not have succeeded. Mtu wa pili ni Professor Makao Mutua, who was the chair of Kenya Human Rights Commission. After talking with Martin Day, tukakubaliana hii kesi tutawakilisha. Lakini mimi nikaona inahitaji utafiti wa kiini wa ndani. And I requested Professor Makao Mutua to involve the Kenya Human Rights Commission, and he agreed. And I would like to acknowledge and kutoa shukrani kwake. Pia Muthoni Wanyeki, George Morara, David Alaba, Bete Murunge, Wanjiru Meano, who had just spoken, Gitobu Imanyara, my colleague, Kivuda Kibwana, the former governor wa Makueni, na CJ Emeritus Willie Mutunga. Without the individual and collective input of all these people, the Mau Mau case in London may not have succeeded in the manner that they did. And on behalf of the members of the Mau Mau War Veterans Association, we thank each one of you, including the many Kenyans, young people who did the research, which was a lot of hard work. I was pleasantly surprised, mimi mwenyewe, during the preparation for this case, to discover that although 80% of the Mau Mau were from the Gikuyu, Embu, and Meru communities, each community in Kenya had 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 members of Mau Mau. And I was very pleasantly surprised. So this was a national movement. It was not just about the Kikuyus. Going forward, let me make the following few points. I know I can see that Mheshimiwa, the Prime Minister, has gone out, but I want to give special thanks to him on behalf of the Mau Mau, my clients, because he accorded the case and the members of the Mau Mau War Veterans Association a lot of assistance in our case at that time. And I wanted to mention to him that going forward, his assistance is still needed. When we were discussing the settlement out of court in London, and Mzee Gitu Kahengeri may remember this, we made a point to the British government that apart from the monetary compensation, tuliwasilisha kesi hii for the Mau Mau to be recognized, for them to get back their dignity and their humanity. They were not terrorists. They were freedom fighters. And we wanted that acknowledged and accepted. That is why we are demanding an apology. And even today, you will remember the statement that was read on behalf of the British government on the floor of the House of Commons, stated in one paragraph that they wanted to have this issue of the atrocities of the behind Kenya and behind Britain so that we can have cordial relations. And we agreed. But we told them it is not enough to compensate the 5,222 people that they compensate. Because that left out many individuals who were detained, who were killed. Ndio, si waliwacha watu wao na familia zao. We would like them recognized. And going forward, to my mind, and this is what I'm going to repeat to the Prime Minister, we would like that effort to be bipartisan. We would like the official opposition led by Mheshimiwa Prime Minister and the government of His Excellency President William Ruto to take up this issue in a bipartisan manner. We are assisting veterans. Any nation that does not recognize and respect their heroes cannot nurture heroes tomorrow. If you want to nurture your heroes, you must accept, you must recognize, and you must honor those who have sacrificed for the nation. So we would like a bipartisan report, a bipartisan approach in resolving this issue. Mheshimiwa Prime Minister Raila Odinga, I was telling members here and the participants that it is important to acknowledge which we do, the valuable, invaluable assistance which you accorded to the Mau Mau War Veterans Association when you are in government, led by the late Mheshimiwa Mwai Kibaki. And I was saying we will continue to need your assistance. Going forward, the new initiative has to be government to government, because the Mau Mau cannot protocol-wise engage the British government. We had filed a case against Britain as Mau Mau. Now going forward, it would have to be government to government, and my own view is that we should give serious consideration to adopting a bipartisan approach, the official opposition which you lead, Prime Minister, and the government of President, His Excellency President William Ruto. The case was filed by Mau Mau. This needs to be government to government. And the first step is to have an exhaustive, accurate list of who was who in Mau Mau, because we don't want anybody to be left out. Sidio? Kuna wengi ambao walikuwa detention. Sidio? Kuna wengi ambao waliwawa. There are many, many others, including the many women who are risking their lives cooking for the Mau Mau. Everybody who participated in one way or the other should be in a list. So a list, accurate and exhaustive, that does not leave anybody behind. I was mentioning, Prime Minister, how surprised I was when we were doing the preparation for the case to discover that although maybe 80-90% of the Mau Mau were from Gikuyu, Embu, and Meru communities, indeed, every community in this country had 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 members in Mau Mau. Mau Mau was a national movement, and we would like them included. When we get a report like that, a wall of honor needs to be built so that their names are inscribed on that wall. In my view, that is even more important than the compensation. Obviously, some compensation would have to be granted to them. And I was very pleased recently to read in the media that the current High Commissioner, British High Commissioner to Kenya, is open, the government of Britain is open to discussions. Prime Minister, let us take advantage of that statement. Let us take advantage of the statement that Britain read on the House of Commons. Let the Kenya government engage the British government. And finally, the issue of land. Many people lost their land, and Mau Mau have lost land twice. Originally, during the days of King George V, before independence, before the Mau Mau War, walinyang'anywa mashamba, si ndio? Na wakanyang'anywa tena wale ambao walipelekwa kizuizini, mashamba yao ikapatiwa the sons of the chiefs. Kana tiguo kuli. Kamutalenda uhoro wa mawali. So we would like them to arrive at some conclusion. And there is a solution, because there are still very big mashamba ni mengi hapa. Serikali inaweza kununua wakisaidiana na serikali ya Uingereza. Kila mtu Mau Mau au wale ambao wametuaga watoto wao, their descendants, wapatiwe, wakipatiwa eka 10, 20 hivi, si watatosheka, because that is what they were fighting for. So Prime Minister, we plead with you to take up this issue, and I can tell you that everywhere in central Kenya where I go, or people from different areas of Mount Kenya, Mount Kenya Central, they remember with a lot of appreciation the assistance you gave back in 2003 and 2004 during the time that we are fighting for that case. So we will continue to work together. Hii safari hatujamaliza na tutaendelea kumaliza mpaka kila mtu ambaye alihusika na hii vita ya Mau Mau apate haki yake. Si ndio? Asanteni sana. Mungu awabariki na abariki taifa letu la Kenya. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Senior Counsel, for the powerful insights and also for journeying with the veterans here in their quest for justice. We really appreciate, and also the proposal for a bipartisan approach in resolving the outstanding Mau Mau issues. The government to government conversation around the same is really a proposal that is much welcome. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, ni wakati wa kutumbuizwa. I know we have been sitting for close to 2 hours, so we want to invite the Field Marshal Band watupatie numbers 2. Kama tuko tayari kucheza pia itakuwa mzuri, tufukuze baridi, si ndio? Sawa sawa, asanteni. If you feel free unaweza.
Mzalendo yateketea, mzalendo jitole mhanga, angalia Kenya yateketea, mzalendo rejea nyumbani, angalia Kenya yateketea, mzalendo rejea nyumbani, angalia Kenya yateketea. Baba kazi hana, mama chungulea kwa uchungu, mtoto njaa, oh kijana karo imekosa. Baba kazi hana, mama chungulea kwa uchungu, mtoto njaa, oh kijana karo imekosa. Oh ya kijana mhanga, angalia Kenya, Kenya, Kenya yateketea. Imba nasi mzalendo jitole mhanga, angalia Kenya yateketea, mzalendo rejea nyumbani, angalia Kenya yateketea, mzalendo rejea nyumbani, angalia Kenya yetu yateketea. Solo tujitolee mhanga kama vile Mekatilili wa Menza alijitolea mhanga. Tujitolee kama vile Muthoni Wito Nyanjiro alijitolea mhanga. Tujitolee mhanga kama vile Dedan Kimathi wa Shiori alijitolea mhanga. Tujitolee mhanga kama vile Goitalel Arab Samoei alijitolea mhanga. Mzalendo jitole mhanga, angalia Kenya yateketea. Imba nasi mzalendo jitole mhanga, angalia Kenya yateketea, mzalendo rejea nyumbani, 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 angalia Kenya yatikia. Asanteni. Ingine moja. Haya. Hii wimbo tunaita makomanda. Komanda kama Koitalel Arab Samoei, komanda kama Mekatilili wa Menza, makomanda wa nchi yetu ya Kenya na bara letu la Afrika. Na Mekatilili makomanda, 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 wamenza, wamenza, na Mekatilili makomanda, wamenza, wamenza, hayayaya, Mekatili makomanda, kwetale la moi makomanda, kwetale liwetu makomanda, na kwetale lwetu makomanda, na kwetale lwetu makomanda, kwetale hayayay, na kwetale lwetu makomanda, kwetale na kwetale lwetu makomanda, wayaki wahinga makomanda, wayaki wahinga makomanda, wayaki wahinga makomanda, wayaki wahinga makomanda, wahinga makomanda, wahinga, wahinga, wayaki wahinga makomanda, muloni nyanjiro makomanda, muloni nyanjiro makomanda, muloni nyanjiro makomanda, muloni nyanjiro makomanda, muloni, muloni, muloni nyanjiro makomanda, muloni, muloni, muloni nyanjiro makomanda. Oya! Muloni nyanjiro makomanda, muloni nyanjiro makomanda, muloni nyanjiro makomanda, muloni nyanjiro makomanda, adoni, muloni, muloni nyanjiro makomanda, muloni, muloni, muloni nyanjiro makomanda, nadongo geshero magerila. Dungu wagesero magerila, dungu wagesero magerila, dungu wagesero magerila, gesero, gesero, na dungu gesero magerila, gesero, gesero, na dungu gesero magerila, jenoro kago ni makomanda, na jenoro kago makomanda. Ajenoro kago makomanda, jenoro kago makomanda, nakago, nakago, jenoro kago ni makomanda, nakago, kago, jenoro kago ni makomanda, na piogama pinto makomanda, piogama pinto ni makomanda, piogama pinto ni makomanda. Piogama pinto ni makomanda, a pinto, Tenoro pinto makomanda, na pinto, nagama pinto ni makomanda, na mau ni magerila, na mau ni makomanda, na mau mwe makomanda, inyode nyue mwe makomanda. Na mau ne makomanda, na mau mau ni makomanda, na mau mau ni makomanda, na mau mau ni makomanda, mau 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 mau, na mau mau ni makomanda, mau 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 mau, na mau mau ni makomanda. Yeah! On the fire, we fight. On the vomit, we light. From the unit, we unite. From the unit, we fight. From the unit, we fight. Na mau mau, ma fighter. Na mau mau, ma fighter. Kibwana wetu, ni fighter. Kibwana wetu, ni fighter. Na mama wetu ni fighter, na maito wito ni fighter, na maito wito ni fighter, na maito wito ni fighter, na watu wote kiribata bata, na wasichana vijana, na wasichana vijana, inuka sote tupambane, inuka sote tupambane. Nakemadhi, a fighter. Nakemadhi, a fighter. Nanyanjiro, a fighter. Bekati Lili, a fighter. Wayaki Hinga, a fighter. Piogama Pinto, a fighter. Piogama Pinto, a fighter. Hata Moite, ni fighter. Naye Moite, guerrilla. Kiribata bata, yawasa. Piribata bata, yawasa. Hadata bata, yawasa. Mlima Kenya, a fighter. Kule Elgon, a fighter. Gasheke wetu, commander. Gasheke wetu, guerrilla. Ah! Na Davida lamba makomanda, na Davida lamba makomanda. Jennifer wetu ni makomanda, Jennifer wetu ni makomanda. Nakahengeri ni kakomanda, Nakahengeri ni makomanda. Kahengeri wetu makomanda, Kahengeri wetu makomanda. Kahengeri, Kahengeri. Kahengeri wetu makomanda. Kahengeri, Kahengeri. Kahengeri wetu makomanda. Kahengeri wetu magerila. Kahengeri wetu magerila. Kahengeri wetu ni magerila. Kahengeri wetu ni magerila. Kahengeri, Kahengeri. Kahengeri wetu ni magerila. Kahengeri, Kahengeri. Kahengeri wetu ni magerila. Na mau mau wote komanda. Na mau mau ni makomanda. Na mau mau ni makomanda. Na mau mau ni makomanda. Mau mau, mau mau. Mau mau wetu ni makomanda. Mau mau, mau mau. Mau wetu ni makomanda. Mau wetu ni makomanda. Mama wetu ni makomanda. Mama wetu amagerila. Mama wetu amagerila. Mama wetu ni magerila. Mama wetu ni magerila. Filmasho Mwariama. Filmasho Baimonge. Brigadier Joki. Kuma Korea Muranga. Atumio de Amarwa yewa ehadi. Wito wa Kenya. Yeah. Viva Mau Mau, viva! Viva Mau Mau, viva! Viva Tumia Mau Mau, viva! Viva Tumia Mau Mau, viva! Ole yo!
Asante sana. Asante sana Field Marshal Band. Indeed, you never disappoint. Tumechangamka. Asante sana. From Ms. Wanjiku Miano, you had Kenya Human Rights Commission. We have been in this transitional justice work for over 20 years. That would not have been possible without resources and support. Okay? And so at this juncture, I will welcome our executive director, Mr. Davis Malombe, to just take us through the next session. Davis, welcome.
Tuko sawa, eh? So I think this is the time to introduce and invite Jessica on from Ford Foundation. But before I do that, there are also apologies from the former Chief Justice, Dr. Winnie Mutunga, who is in Tanzania, attending the launch of a report, Professor Isa Shiviji. So he wanted to be here because actually he's the one who pioneered this work when he was the ED of KHRC, and he also supported it when he was the Chief Justice. And of course, there's Wakili Singei, who is the chair of Senate Legal and Justice Affairs, who have committed actually to push this agenda of colonial atrocities within the Senate. And of course, Betty Murungi, who was our vice chair, and she really pushed this agenda because she's also an expert on transitional justice. And of course, this program used to be run by officers. The first one was Bogwa. Then from there, Mikewa, as Wanjiku said. Then we had George Morara, Faith Alube, and then now we have Martin Mabejina. So those are the officers in KHRC who has led this work from 2003 to date. Actually, the first officer was Wanjiku. Wanjiku was the one who was leading this as a senior program officer. So Wanjiku ndiye alianza, then the rest came. And also our deputy EDs, Steve Ouma, Danny Nyumba, and Tom Kagwe, also used to support this a lot. Actually, this is the only program in KHRC we used to be told is a program of the board. So we used to report to the board all the time because it was their project. So Jessica, welcome so much to this event. So why is Ford critical in this conversation? Actually, I went to my computer and I found an advert dated 2nd of June 2006, where KHRC was doing a fundraising to support the first phases of this project at Pan-Africa. So we had no money at all. So there was a dinner on Memorial Liberation Suits. So those days, most of our donors used to be, the international governments. So none was willing to touch this project because we are targeting a major, power, British government. So Ford Foundation really supported us in the initial phases. And then when we got the settlement in June 2016, the money we got for the monument was not enough. I remember the design we got from our chair, David Lamba, was quite progressive. So what the British imagined they are going to support was a very small thing. So the idea we came up with was big. So again, we had to supplement a lot of our resources to build the monument and also to support the Mau in all the activities we have been organizing. So that time, we were getting funding from the Ford Foundation called the Global Human Rights Program, which was supporting, part of the initiative was on transitional justice. So I think Ford has played a very big role in this struggle for reparations for the Mau and also for other victims of historical and emerging injustices in the country. So Jessica, who is the regional director of Ford Foundation East Africa, karibu sana, you share your perspectives. And then the other interesting thing is this year we're also supposed to mark the 6th anniversary of Ford Foundation, and the agenda actually was around also the same discussion about the struggles we have gone in the country from the first liberation under Mau, the second, and then the current third liberation, which is about implementation of the Constitution of Kenya. So karibu sana Jessica, and General Elif, you're also going to say something. You can't come all the way from coast. Na wewe ni njemendari wa hii maneno na uende hivyo.
Good afternoon to all of you. I stand here with great humility because I stand here with an inherited legacy of solidarity. So I want to greet you, to the distinguished guests here, to the Mashujaa of generations, to also give thanks for the rain which has fallen with such great force on us, which surely can be nothing but a blessing. To give thanks for the fire that was the Field Marshal's band that brought out the spirit in us, that made us dance. And to give thanks to you, the liberation fighters, who are our earth. You fought for the land because you are the land. And I should say that we acknowledge as Africans every person who stood up to say that a rule that took away the basic sovereignty, even to the extent of taking away the sovereignty over our own bodies, as our sister here reminded us, was not a rule we could ever permit. Because that is not a rule that stands for life, and we here stand for life. In human rights, the fundamental principle is the defense of life. Sindio? So we are here to stand for life. And as I said, I'm standing here as part of an inherited legacy of leadership. The Ford Foundation opened its offices just after independence, actually in '63. And at that time, we had a mandate for East and Southern Africa. Many of the countries in Southern Africa were still under colonial rule. And if I look at the history, because it's now 60 years this year to celebrate, still to this day, the largest grants that we ever gave were actually to the national universities of the countries in the region, because the vision was to help build the nations that you all fought for, and to ensure that the citizens of those nations would be the people who would be able to determine the affairs of those nations with the proper skills and visions that they had, and to build up the protections that are critical for that in the legal system, in the constitutions, and in the capacity to defend that over time. And so it's that reason actually that the Ford Foundation was a seed funder of the Kenyan Human Rights Commission in the 1990s, and that relationship has continued to this day. And the Kenyan Human Rights Commission, if it's one thing, it's consistent. Because regardless of the context, you see they brought the fire, regardless of the context within which they're operating, they always raise the same questions, right? How can we ensure that we have the mechanisms and respect the fundamental rights of the people, regardless of who they're asking? They ask the same thing. So really, mine is to just say a very deep thank you. Asanteni sana with great humility because I am a daughter of your struggles. We are daughters of your struggles. And, you know, in the early years of my life, I lived in Lesotho. My father was a professor. And at that time, the universities in the Southern African region were the place where the ANC in exile organized from and mobilized from and built consciousness and taught. And so that was my first exposure to understanding what it took to create a liberation movement. And so I will just end, like I said, with deep respect. And to say that all of the labor of transformation is never lost. Because it is true that this movement in Kenya inspired and has inspired so many across the world. And it is true that, as our wazee would say, a luta continua, but remember that they also ended with Victoria es certa, which means victory is certain. So again, a congratulations on this historic day with the launch of this important foundation. Thank you for the work. Thank you for the contribution to everybody's life, and to defending the principle that it is possible to have justice.
Thank you, Jessica, for those wonderful and rich remarks. Allow me right now to welcome senior citizen Helef Khalifa, board member of Muhuri. Karibu.
Good afternoon, everybody. There was a time in the struggle for liberation of this country. The first liberation that is started at 50 Mau Mau, and then second liberation in the early 90s, and then came the third liberation. We have to reach somewhere. We have to reach somewhere and said, now tumefika. Maanake hivi tunavyokwenda, every step we go forward, sometimes we take 3 steps backward. Na hii kitu ambacho kinatupa wasiwasi kidogo, kwa sababu lengo ni kupata haki kwa upande wa sheria, kwa upande wa uchumi, na kwa upande wa mashamba, na kwa upande kila kitu. Na the most important thing, kwamba kila mmoja lazima obey the rule of law and obedience to the constitution. Hii ni kitu kigumu sana mpaka sasa hivi hatujakipata. Nataka rafiki yangu hapa Yashpal Guy na Jill Cottrell Guy tumefanya kazi pamoja kwa muda mrefu sana, na pia nataka kuona the presence of Diana Lee Smith, which she's here also. Mambo yangu ni matatu, hayo ndio aliyosema. The first liberation, second liberation, third liberation. I hope this is the last one. Manake hivi tunavyokwenda inatutia wasiwasi. This country belongs to all of us. Unfortunately, this country ina misingi ya kikabila ile ndani kabisa. Na hii kitu yataka tuache. Ukabila sawa, lakini the first and most important thing, we are all Kenyans. We are born in this country, raised in this country, we have equal rights. Na kila mtu lazima heshimu ile sharia. Na poleni sana kwa maisha magumu. Kila mtu analia, hii serikali imetupa shida sana kwa maisha magumu. Kwa hivyo poleni na asante sana. Thank you.
Thank you, Helef. Ukizungumzia mambo ya rule of law, Helef will never disappoint. Mkileta mchezo kidogo on injustices, mutaenda kotini. Thank you so much, Helef, for those powerful remarks. We quickly now move to inviting Dr. Bernard Mogesa, who heads the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. He's going to share with us the plans that the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights has as regards this topic. Daktari, karibu.
Thank you very much, the Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga, distinguished guests, Mzee wa Kahengeri, distinguished freedom fighters, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to stand in this platform this afternoon to say that as Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, our creation, our establishment was championed by the Kenya Human Rights Commission, and therefore we keep working together to ensure that we secure the human rights of all Kenyans. When I look in this house, those who have fought for the freedom in this country, we can ask ourselves one question, that did we achieve what you fought for? That is a very pertinent question for all of us to address. And as Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, I can give the answer is no, and these are the areas that we must think about to ensure that our freedom fighters are not only acknowledged, but we also ensure that what they fought for is achieved. One of the key areas that we must address as a country, and of course the government, are the rising levels of poverty in our country. We must address the inequalities that are ever evolving in our own country here. We must address the youth unemployment. We must address issues of transparency and accountability. And we must also stand up and fight and ensure that we deal with impunity. Why should we, for example, experience disappearances of Kenyans in this country, which has been documented from time to time? Why do we still experience human rights defenders facing a myriad of challenges, including threats on their own lives? Why do we still experience evictions 60 years since we gained our independence? And even as I'm speaking to you at this moment, evictions are still going on in the country. And already as a commission, we have issued a statement. It's on our website condemning the evictions that are ongoing currently. Why do we, for example, not address what the African Court has said about Kenya and the protection of human rights? That is all impunity. And for us as a commission, each one of us must stand and fight the impunity that goes on in our own countries. Let's protect the vulnerable groups. Let's recognize and protect the rights of indigenous people in our country. And if we want to give a gift to these freedom fighters who are here, those who have died, let us rise up and ensure that what they fought for is achieved within the shortest time possible. Let us respect the rights of older persons. When I look at a majority of them, in fact all of them are older persons. But I can tell you from statistics, as a country, we have not yet achieved the international standards of the protection of the rights of older persons. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daktari. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to now welcome the man of the moment, the national leader, Honorable Shujaa, Dr. Gitu Kahengeri, to make his remarks. Karibu sana, Shujaa.
ciana na tumia boso ya gwathĩ tũkenyũrana hoya ima thai ma nĩamu Ngai no ũrĩa wa tene.
Leo sitaweza kusimama na kuzungumza mengi, lakini mimi leo nataka kuwahadithia hadithi kidogo ambayo mimi natumaini mtaifahamu. Sisi tumekuja hapa leo kwa sababu ya watu waliopigania uhuru wa nchi hii. Katika mwaka wa 1952 karibu nchi nzima ilienda katika vita na Waingereza, lakini kwa bahati mbaya kabisa kuna watu wengine ambao waliandikwa vibaraka wa serikali hiyo waliotaka kupigana na sisi. Tulipigana vita ya miaka 7. Watu waliuawa katika nchi hii kwa kiwango kikubwa, na si wa Kikuyu, na si wa Jaluo, na si wa Kalenjin, ni watu wa Kenya. Kwa sababu tulipokwenda katika vita vya Mau Mau, sisi hatukuenda tukiwa kabila, tulienda tukiwa watu wa Kenya. Na sisi hata ingawa tulizuiwa kusoma, tulijua mipaka yetu. Tulijua mpaka moja wetu ni Namanga, wa pili ni Moyale, wa tatu ni Busia, na wa nne ni Bahari ya Hindi. Kwa hivyo vita vyetu vilikuwa vita vya watu wa Kenya. Atakaye hadithia wewe habari ya Wajaluo au wa Kikuyu au wa Kalenjin habari ya vita vya Mau Mau atakuwa anadanganya wewe. Kwa sababu katika nchi hii, katika utawala wa ukoloni, hatujui mtu hata mmoja Mwafrika ambaye alikuwa akitendewa vizuri na Waingereza. Kwa hivyo wakati vita vya Mau Mau vilivyotokea, kila mwananchi wa nchi hii ambaye alikuwa anaumizwa aliingia katika vita hivyo. Mimi nataka kutoa shukrani nyingi sana kwa watu wa Kenya wote kwa ujumla, kwa sababu waliwezesha sisi mashujaa kuweza kumuondoa Mwingereza katika nchi yetu. Sasa ilifanyika nini baada ya sisi kushinda vita vivyo? Mwingereza na wale vibaraka wake walikula njama ya kwamba hao walikuwa wana support pande yake ndio watapewa uhuru, ndio sisi tukitoka katika jela na kila mahali pengine tukute serikali imefanywa na iko katika mikono yao. Walifanya nini? Walichukua serikali, halafu wakachukua kila kitu katika nchi yetu. Pesa katika benki, vichaka, kila kitu ambacho ni matunda ya uhuru ikawa katika mikono yao, na akaanza kukula matunda hayo wakati huo wa siku hiyo. Wamekula matunda yetu ambayo tulileta kwa jasho, machozi na damu mpaka siku hii. Wale waliopigania uhuru hawana mahali popote ambao wanaweza kukaa, ambao wanaweza kupata pesa kuweza kununua dawa. Sasa hawa vibaraka wa wazungu wameingilia, sasa wanakula uhuru wetu tulioleta kwa jasho na damu. Hiyo nimemaliza. Nataka kuja ya pili. Nataka kutoa shukrani nyingi sana kwa Kenya Human Rights Commission na zaidi wakurugenzi ambao wamekuwa wakiongoza kutokea Wanjiku wa Miano, Willy Mutunga, Makao Mutua, ambao ni wa kwanza kunipa sisi shilingi 1,500 ili tuweze kupeleka kesi yetu katika koti. Siwezi kusahau vile vile ya kwamba Minister Wetangula alipokuwa Prime Minister, alikuwa Foreign Secretary, ndio minister wa kwanza kutoa takriban taarifa yake ya kusema ya kwamba wanaunga mkono kesi ya watu wa Mau Mau ambao tulipeleka Ulaya tarehe 23 mwezi wa 6 2009. Nataka kumshukuru sana kwa sababu alikuwa katika serikali wakati huo na alitoa hotuba hiyo, statement ya kusaidia kesi yetu. Siwezi kusahau kabisa Yash Pagai ambaye tunaye hapa leo, kwa sababu katika katiba yetu aliwezesha sisi kutambuliwa katika preamble ambayo inasema tuheshimu wale walioleta uhuru na haki katika nchi yetu. Kwa hivyo ni pongezi sana kwa sababu katiba hiyo alianzisha ndio iliweka mambo hayo katika katiba. Siwezi kusahau vile vile kuzungumza habari ya Raila, Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga. Yeye amekuwa na sisi kutoka mwanzo mpaka leo tarehe 8 mwezi wa 11 2003. Hongera. Wewe ni mwana wa Kenya ambao tulizaa tukiwa katika vita vya Mau Mau, na tungependa wewe kuendelea kuongoza na kuona haki zetu zimetendeka. Siwezi vile vile kusahau mawakili wa Ulaya, wale ambao walipeleka kesi yetu katika koti, pamoja na Paul Moite, kwa sababu hawa waliwezesha kesi yetu kuendelea na kushinda kesi hiyo. Kwa nini? Kwa sababu kesi hiyo ilitoa statement of regret katika bunge la Uingereza, ilitoa vile vile pesa kidogo ya kulipa wale waliopigwa, na vile vile walijenga monument ambao wanaita Mau Mau Monument katika Uhuru Park kwa pesa yao. Kwa hivyo hiyo ni kesi ambayo tulishinda na tutataka kushinda ingine sasa. Tarehe 1 mwezi huu ilikuwa siku ya Alhamisi, saa 8:30, mimi niliketi na mfalme wa Uingereza na tukakaa naye kwa muda wa saa 1. Nilimwambia nini? Hiyo nataka mfahamu vyema. Nilimwambia, ufahamu watu wa Uingereza katika serikali iliyokuwa hapa dhalimu, waliua watu wetu, waliwafanya watu wetu kuwa maskini, waliwafanya watu wetu kuwa kutokuwa na mashamba. Mambo haya yote walitenda wakitudhulumu kwa sababu sisi ni Waafrika. Basi nikamwambia afanye nini? Nikamwambia, wewe sasa fikiria, kwa sababu nyinyi ndio mlitendea sisi vibaya, uanzishe mtindo wa kuleta reconciliation. Na njia ya kwanza ni ya kwamba wale watu walionyang'anywa mashamba yao wakati wa vita vya Mau Mau wapewe mashamba. Nikamwambia vile vile wale watu ambao waliumizwa katika jela wakafanywa maskini wapewe fidia waweze kuendelea na maisha yao kabla ya kufa. Nikamwambia vile vile tulifungwa jela miaka 7, watoto wetu hawakusoma. Uangalie utakuwa na scholarship scheme ambayo itawasomesha watoto wa watu waliopigania vita vya Mau Mau. Mambo haya ambayo nilimwambia niliyasoma jana katika gazeti la Nation. Ilisema Waingereza wamekubali kuendelea na mazungumzo juu ya reparation. Kwa hivyo nikaona ya kwamba alisikia maneno yetu, na kwa sasa tunangoja yeye kuanzisha mambo haya kwa sababu yalikuwako. Kuna njia ya pili ambayo mimi nataka kusema hapa leo. Martin, kitabu ambacho tunacho kwa sababu ya tabu hizi, sisi ni kijibu Wanjiku wa Meano kama alivyosema, na sisi vile vile tuandike vitabu ambao vinaonyesha hali yetu, kwa sababu vitabu vinavyosomwa katika mashule sasa ni vitabu vimeandikwa na wazungu na wale wanaitwa wapagazi wao. Kwa hivyo sisi tumeandika kitabu tukiwa Mau Mau War Veterans Association ambacho kinaitwa The Betrayal of the Mau Freedom Fighters, ambacho leo tutakizindua katika mkutano huu. Katika kitabu hiki utaona ni nini ilifanyika ndio kwamba watu wa Mau Mau wanaishi katika tabu kwa miaka 60 katika serikali walioleta na mikono yao. Kitabu hiki kitaeleza wewe kikamilifu kwa nini ilitendeka namna hiyo. Sasa nataka kusema hivi. Nina ile remarks yangu ambayo nimeandika kwa Kiingereza, na mimi singependa kuondoka hapa bila ya nyinyi kuisikia. Na kwa sababu mimi sasa nguvu zangu za mwili ni kidogo, nitamuita mjukuu wangu, great grandson, ambaye jina lake ni jina la baba wangu, ambaye baba wangu tulikuwa naye miaka 7 katika detention camp, asome remarki yangu. Morio, wasome.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, Mau Mau War veterans and friends, Hamjambo. Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. I am Mr. Gito's great grandson. He said that. And I am honored to be in this room with so many great minds and great people of Kenya. He says I'm his grandson, but he's my father. He brought me up, schooled me up. Since my father departed and went to his maker, since I was 11 years old. So indeed, he is my father. So I guess Mzee here, allowing me to read his speech, it's unheard of. And I think 20 years back, mtu kusimama anashika speech ya mzee atapata kiboko. So I don't know what I did to deserve this honor. And I guess we can't all imagine how magical and precious time really is. Without further ado, I will begin my old man speech because that's the main business of the day. In the 1940s, I was about 17 years of age. My father, Kahengeri Wageto, who was an agitator against the colonial regime in Kenya, introduced me to be an errand boy to other freedom struggle initiates in the KCA political movement. During my errand duties with the KCA freedom seekers, through civil ways of political agitation, I learned and fully understood why our foreparents were fighting the imposed colonial regime. The following are some of the matters I clearly understood to be horrible deeds done to Kenya Africans by the colonial administrators. Destruction of African culture and their way of living. Grabbing all fertile lands through power of the gun. Restricting African education to standard 4. Disregarding all human rights of Africans. Abusing Africans in all the administrative barazas, among other brutal methods the colonial empire employed. In 1946, a new way of armed freedom struggle was agreed upon by all political agitators of freedom. I decided to join freedom fighters and declared my binding and commitment affirmation. Since then, I have been in the center of Mau Mau liberation struggle together with my father, Kahengeri Wageto. Until the decisive day of the 12th of December, 1963, when we heroically recovered our freedom and justice. To achieve the recovery of our freedom, freedom fighters sacrificed their wealth, body, strength, intelligence, and to the extreme, their dear lives. The gallant heroes and heroines brought to Kenya freedom and justice with tears, sweat, and blood. It's an incomparable task they accomplished for the people of Kenya. They rightly deserve incomparable recognition and material support. Through intrigues and betrayals, Kenyan freedom fighters were thrown into the wilderness after the colonial regime. The so-called home guards, loyalists, connived to steal freedom fighters' victory and destroy their lives at any cost. Freedom fighters to date live in abject poverty, lack of settlements, unemployed, lack of sufficient food, lack of money for medicine, and a host of other human problems. Having personally been at the center of Mau Mau liberation struggle for many years, I decided to write and publish the book entitled The Betrayal of the Mau Mau Freedom Fighters. This book will tell you why and how a government made to be by freedom fighters has neglected liberators for 60 years. Kenya, be blessed. And I would like all of you to repeat after me, please, with power. We had power breakfast in the morning, so it shouldn't be a problem. Long live, long live, long live the Mau Mau patriotic liberation spirit. Thank you, and may God bless.
Nitamaliza na kusema hivi. Tuliongozwa katika vita vya upiganiaji uhuru na wale waliokuwa mbele yetu, Mekatilili wa Menza from Kilifi, Koitare Osomoy from Nandi in Rift Valley, Wayaki Wahinga in Central Province, na wengine ambao walikuwa mashujaa wa kukataa utumwa wa ubeberu. Nyinyi ni wasome sasa. Tulijitolea kwa kila hali ndio nyinyi muweze kusoma. Ukienda katika sublocation yoyote sasa, kwa sababu watu wa nchi hii wako katika mkutano huu. Tuna watu kutoka Kilifi, tuna watu kutoka Lodwar, tuna watu kutoka Siaya, tuna watu kutoka Kakamega, tuna watu kutoka Bungoma, tuna watu kutoka Narok, tuna watu kutoka Kajiado, tuna watu kutoka Machakos, tuna watu kutoka Kitui, kutoka Makueni, kila mahali ya nchi yetu tunao watu waliokuwa katika harakati za kupigania uhuru. Sasa nyinyi watoto wetu ambao tulikufa kwa juu yao wasome vizuri. Msikubali masomo yenu kutumiwa kwa njia mbovu. Ulisoma ujisaidie na masomo, na vile vile utambulike katika nchi yako ya kwamba ni mtoto aliyesoma wa nchi hii. Kama nchi hii ikianguka, nyinyi mtalipa kwa njia ambayo mimi siwezi kusema, lakini mtalipa. Ningependa vile vile kushukuru President kwa sababu wakati alikutana na mfalme alisema mambo kadhaa. Alisema, mjue nyinyi mlinyang'anya watu vichaka, nyinyi mlipoteza haki za watu, na kwa hivyo nyinyi tengenezeni kukuwe na full reparation discussion. Hatuwezi kusahau kusema hivyo kwa sababu alisema hivyo. Right Honorable Raila Odinga, mimi ningekuambia hapa, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga alifanya kazi ambayo haiwezi kulinganishwa na kazi zingine kwa niaba ya watu wa Kenya. Chukua mtindo huo, ufanye kazi ya kuhifadhi mambo yote ambayo yalipiganiwa na hawa wapiganiaji uhuru. Sisi kama freedom fighters, na mimi naona gavana wa Makueni Kibudha Kibwana, ambao amefanya kazi nyingi sana tangu tulipoanzia utetezi wa demokrasi. Na wewe pia usichoke. Ulizaliwa kufanya kazi ya namna hiyo. Sasa wale wote ambao nazungumza juu yao, nafikiri maneno yangu mumeifahamu vyema. Kithuku, endelea na kazi hiyo kwa sababu ni kazi ya muhimu kwa nchi yako. Watu hawawezi kuishi kama mawe. Sisi kuna wakati ambao hatutahutubia nyinyi kwa sababu tumekwenda, lakini tuna matumaini mumesikia yote ambayo tumekuwa tukizungumza, na vile vile mumejua yote ambayo tumekuwa tukitafuta. Sasa mjaribu, kwa sababu jana British High Commission alisema British government wamekubali kumzungumza habari ya reparation. Na nikarudia CIA jana, nikamwambia watu wa Mau Mau fraternity wamesikia maneno yako, na sasa tunataka wewe uongoze njia ya kufikia lengo hilo. Shukrani kwa kunisikiliza.
Asante sana. Thank you very much, Honorable Gitu and James Kahengeri, for the invaluable insights Indeed, he is a shujaa wa Mau Mau. In the interest of time, I'll now welcome Senator Busia County. He is also a member of the Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights Committee. He's also popularly known as Mtetezi wa Wanyonge. I know we had so much of Honorable Kio Mtata during the finance bill. Sindio? Karibu sana. Honorable, give us your remarks.
Mzee Gidwa Kihengeri, I think is the oldest member here. Honorable, Right Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, and all my fellow brothers and sisters in the struggle. Hamujambo. But nimeshukuru sana kuwa hapa na kusikia machache ambayo nimesikia. Nimekuja kuchelewa kwa sababu mnapojua saa hii tunakaa kama majaji kule kwa Senate kuamua mambo yenye imetoka Meru. Na tumepatiwa break ya saa 1:30 na nikaona nikimbie nije hapa tusalimiane alafu nirudi niendelee na ile kazi mlinipea. So asanteni sana. Yangu yatakuwa mafupi. Jambo la kwanza nataka tuelewane. Kama huna story kwa Kiswahili wanainaitwaje? Kama huna hadithi, lakini hadithi inakaa kama sungura mjanja. Lakini kama huna hadithi, if you don't have a story, you don't exist. It's out of the story that you have that you can have claims to anything. Today, the most powerful people in the world are the Jews as a community. Why? They have a very long story. And so, our story needs to be understood, needs to be documented, needs to be told. Should I speak English or Swahili? Swahili. Okay. So, hiyo hadithi yetu inataka tuielewe vizuri, tuweze kuiandika, tuweze kuitunza na tuweze kuitangaza. Ndio watu wajue kwamba sisi pia ni watu ambao wanatoka mahali fulani na wana mwelekeo fulani. Na ndio maana katika seneti tumeamua kwamba haya mambo haya makosa yaliyotendwa na wakoloni ni lazima yaandikwe. Na kwa sasa hivi tunajaribu kutengeneza tume ambayo tunataka kwenda kwa kila county yaandike ni vitu gani wakoloni walitenda. Kama walipora mali yenu, mlikuwa na dhahabu kama Kakamega, itaandikwa na tutafute hiyo dhahabu ilienda wapi na iregeshwe kwa wenyewe. Tumeelewana? What I'm saying is that right now in the Senate, we have made a decision to document the atrocities that were done by the colonialists in this country. And we are going to form county-based committees of detail to interrogate and audit our narrative, to be able to ferret out violations of human rights and other crimes against humanity. And then from there, we would want to make it a state project to demand reparations. It will not be done by NGOs. It has to be the state with the support of NGOs, not the NGOs leading the fight. That's what I think in the Senate we have resolved, and we are working towards the legal framework for doing that. Jambo la pili, huu msukumo ni kwamba tumesikia mzee Githu akisema walikuja wakatunyang'anya haki yetu, mashamba yetu na kadhalika. Na sasa hivi kuna wale ambao bado wanaendelea kufanya hiyo kazi. Wanatunyang'anya haki yetu, wamekaa kwa maofisi, wanatuibia na wanatuletea umaskini. Hiyo ni lazima tukabiliane nayo. Na ndio maana sasa tukitoka hapa kwenye hii msukumo wa liberation, wa ukombozi, lazima tuingie msukumo wa emancipation. Sijui kwa Kiswahili emancipation ni nini? Ridha. Ati? Emancipation kwa Kiswahili ni kwa English. Tumefanya ukombozi wa kujikomboa kwa mkoloni. Lakini hiyo kujikomboa ile ni kama kuvunja jela. Kama wewe umefungwa kwenye jela, alafu kuna kuja wakati wanasema hiyo jela lazima ifunjwe, itavunjwa alafu naambiwa wewe nenda nyumbani. Lakini utaenda sasa waangalie huna transport, huna nini. Jioni ikifika utarudi kwa jela, kwa mwenye jela useme unisaidie nilale tu siku moja tena kwa hii jela nikijipanga kwenda nyumbani. Sasa tunasema kuvunja jela haitoshi. Ile haki yako ambayo ulipoteza ukiwa kwenye hiyo jela lazima upewe. Na ndio maana sasa tumeanza kuangalia kwamba mambo ya uchumi ni muhimu sana. Tuache porojo yote. Suluhu ya umaskini ni sisi wenyewe kujipanga na kusimamia uchumi wetu kwa njia ambayo inafaa. Tuanze kuangalia kwamba mali yetu ambayo tunatoza kwa ushuru inafanya kazi gani? Inatumika vipi? Na tuache mambo ya kutegemea mambo ya agriculture. At the backbone of the economy is agriculture. That's an insult in the 21st century. We must get into the service industry. We must begin competing with the rest of the world. We must begin embracing our comparative advantages. We must begin creating millionaires in our villages. We must see rich people across the country. And we are not going to do that just by repeating this mantra that agriculture. We must manufacture. Sasa hivi tunapigana kule bunge. Kuna ile mambo ya kutengeneza magari, automotive industry. Ukiangalia kulikuwa na agreement ilitengenezwa na UN 1958. Ambapo ukisaini hiyo agreement mnaweza kuwa na kiwanda chenu hapa industrial area na mna manufacture kama ni carburetor ya Toyota ama ni filter ya Toyota, na itakuwa genuine original equipment yenye inaweza kuuzwa hata Uingereza. Kuna mabwenyenya hapa walikataa kusaini hiyo treaty. Mpaka sasa hatujasaini. Hizo vita ndio tunapigana sasa hii. Tunataka kujikomboa kiuchumi. Ule mtu anatukalia mzungu alienda, yale makosa alifanya tutamwandama. Lakini hata tukipata hiyo haitatushibisha. Lazima tuanze kujiuliza sisi kama watu wa dola hili ni vipi tutatajirika. Hakuna vile Mmeru atauza miraa atajirike. Tujenge viwanda. Tukianza kuingia kwa hizi industries zingine ambazo zinafanya hivi na vile, na kama motor vehicle tunajaribu kusukuma, tukiweza kutengeneza 40% ya motor vehicle hapa Kenya, itatusaidia kwa njia kubwa sana. Na unapata shida imekuwa miaka yote watu walikataa kuweka vidole mahali fulani kwa sababu uchumi unaendeshwa na traders, not investors. We have very many transactional characters in this country. They drive the economy on the basis of trade, not investment and growth, not development. And that is where we must take our next frontier, to fight so that we can get emancipation, so that we can get rich people in this country, so that we can get to compete with the rest of the world. But to get there, we must tell our story of where we are coming from. And that's why efforts like these are extremely important. Because we must be able to remind people that at one time, some people thought we did not deserve to live in this country. And they wanted to exterminate us. And that can happen again. So how do you protect against that? It's the same people, it's the same ideologies, everything is the same. So how do we protect ourselves from these existential threats that are coming? Look at the history of Africa. Look at the leaders who are assassinated. What kind of leaders were they? Look at the history of Africa. Look at the leaders who find it impossible to ascend to power even when they win elections. They can't ascend to power. What history is that? What does it tell us? So beyond liberation, let us look at emancipation. Let us look at emancipation. Let us transit from the narrative of Joshua into the promised land to Nehemiah coming back from Babylon. We are no longer in Egypt. We left Egypt in 1963. Right now we are in Babylon. So we need to find a formula of getting out of Babylon back to Jerusalem. I'm using the Jewish professed Christians and the Jewish. You have grafted yourself into the Jewish story, so it's part of our story. So everything you have gained. How do we go back and be the people God intended us to be? How do we go back to be
and these other items? Why don't you build all 16,000 primary schools, which are important and the need of uplift? We had somebody mention that. So we had that. Now, Bill Okero. And I know you very well. I know you're a serious economist. Well, you stated the government needs to review taxes, and you've had a good professor say he's working on it. What are the top 5 taxes that, in your view, government should review? Of course, you had Professor Ndungu say, if you touch anything, you distort the revenue collection and everything. We are here to convince you, our dear friend, Professor Ndungu, you can review some of these taxes. And instead of having your revenues going down, this is a submission, you will go even to the optimum level. You'll be able to raise so much. Kenyans will willingly give, but not when you have 20, I think, how many items. You'll be hearing from Honorable Eugene Wamalwa on the number of some of those things. And then G to G. This story about Uganda, Davis, did you not think, even within the framework of East African Community, because whenever ministers of finance of the community present their estimates to Parliament, they do so actually on an agreed date. Therefore, in the spirit of regional integration, Uganda is a very important customer to Kenya. If I'm now hearing President Museveni saying, okay, he's going to borrow your G2G effort, but he's doing it with like a pained situation. Did you consult with Uganda before you went on your G2G arrangements? Those are some of my earlier my comments, and I think, I don't know.
Thank you. I have yeah.
Yeah. We'll hear Hassan Omar, and then we can hear Eugene.
Thank you. To the contrary, Excellency, and I'm a big supporter of the G2G, but just with some minimum qualifications. I just wanted to know, I know that the payment is after the lapse of the 180 days through a staggered system. My question is, at what point does the G2G framework lapse? To pay the entire sum? And number two, are the prices hedged by any chance? Because yes, if today the prices are going up, there's a likelihood that they might also go down. I remember when I was sitting in the investigations on Kenya Airways, one of the things that was said to be fatal in the Mawingo plan or in the operations of Kenya Airways was hedging of the fuel prices. So the prices hedged. Number two, you might not have mentioned it directly, but you had mentioned it somewhere that there were very oppressive PPAs, power purchase agreements, that had been signed by certain producers of electricity. Is it time we bit a bullet and be able to bring some of them to either a close or to termination? And I know that sometimes the worry of governments is always the liabilities that come with that type of drastic action, particularly the fact that we have a very robust court and many investors look at Kenya.
Without interrupting you, Hassan, you're referring to independent power purchasers or producers, right?
Yeah, PPAs.
Because that issue is also, in fact, I wanted Bill Lokero also to deal with it, but please continue.
So and then I overhear this whole issue about investment here, investment there, investment here. We are building this, we are building that. Will all these investments ultimately bring down the cost of electricity? There's a large allegation that the KPLC is owned by a certain mother of ourselves, and she sells this electricity very punitively to us. So I think if you might be able to address the supply chain, but in terms of now the demand, will you be able to enjoy more affordable electricity or cheap electricity? Hinga, the Excellency will tell you that I've been your biggest proponent here, very passionate about the housing agenda, because it's part of our social contract to give dignity to our people, and I heard you allude to it. You know, the irony is that in Kenya, as we create wealth, we must also bridge the gap to ensure that the dignity of the poor is improved. So we cannot just be saying that we wait for the economy to improve and that's when we start to build houses. We must do both simultaneously or concurrently. But I just wanted you to clarify that this money is not actually for building houses. You're actually facilitating private investors to build these houses. All you're doing is to be able to do some bit of market risk, to take up part of the market risk, and number two, to structure affordable mortgages using the housing fund so that you can be able to have more Kenyans access these housing at affordable rates. Rugo, for you, I just had one question. I comment everybody agrees with you. And some of these opaque contracts are those like the Mawingo plan and the KQ. We are paying a certain bank. The Mawingo plan was designed to bring Kenya Airways down to benefit a few people. I think, what do you think is the sustainability of the government of Kenya? Why do you think Professor Ndungu still has to pay for it when we know where the travesties were? We know who is benefiting. We know who the leader of that criminal enterprise is. Why are we still paying for the liabilities of a single person and a single individual? So I think I wanted to hear from you. What would you advise our government in these very important economic times to do, to keep Kenya Airways paying its debt, or to keep Kenyans a bit more engaged in terms of their day-to-day life issues? The last one, I think I don't have much of a question to Bill. I always read his comments, and to a large extent, I actually do agree with you. And that I, in particular, as much as I am a member of the Kenya Kwanza government, the KNTSC was a total fraud. It was supposed to be about market stabilization, and then the KNTSC ends up selling products more expensive than the market itself. So I'm hoping that an investigation will be done, and those responsible in distorting all these market prices and putting Kenyans into such loss will be taken to book. I think those are some of the kind of things we must stand for. But the last one, Professor Ndungu, I think what I flagged in this whole discussion of the cost of living were two issues. Apart from our imports, is food and fuel. And fuel is tied to the dollar. And I really liked your idea about the nominal exchange rate in terms of having an automatic stabilization. But what we hear is that people are holding on to these dollars. There's no dollar deficiency in the market. I'm told by the economic team that there's $8.5 billion in the Kenyan market today. But because you have left the market take charge, so I can hold on to my dollars. I also have a few dollars these days. And I hold on to them because I know what was at 138 a few months ago is now even I take loans from friends on Kenya shillings. I know that as the dollar strengthens, I'll just liquidate my dollar account and pay them back. So what will you do? But they're not many, so it's not comfortable.
No, don't go back on it.
So
you have a few dollars, which is on the lower side.
Yes. So if I am thinking like that, what of others who have a larger cachet? So you've left it to the market stabilization, automatic stabilization, but then you're not doing much to ensure that those people with dollars put their dollars in the market, so that at least the rate of the dollar is mitigated. So as we leave it to that free flow, we must also make sure that we put in some minimum regulation to ensure that those with dollars are able to put them into the market, or to ensure that the rate is stabilized at a certain point.
Well, thank you. We gather that Bilo is requesting to be released by 2 o'clock. I think we can allow you when it comes to answering first. But let us hear Eugene.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much. I think to the CS National Treasury and CS Energy, we've been sitting here for, I think, over 70 days. But one of the most shocking revelations that was made before this committee was by the Control of Budget about a new phenomenon called budgeted corruption. Now that we have the National Treasury here, because she went on record, would like you to also go on record to clarify this issue that shocked us, that shocked the nation. And she gave an example of her own salary. And she said when she looked at what had been budgeted, it was 3 times. Yet what she gets is what is her actual salary. Therefore, there is something fishy at the National Treasury. There's some cooking going on there. I would like you, CS, to clarify this issue, because we know that corruption is one of the biggest, actually, challenges that the country is facing. It's estimated that almost 30% of our budget really is consumed by corruption. So if we are able to contain that issue of corruption, we've also heard from the experts the issue of the government overspending. If we're able to rein in those 2 issues, I think there will be enough money to ensure that Kenyans are not really overtaxed as they are. Would like you to guide us on that one. The other issue was also what has been referred to as the G2G. We were very concerned, and I think His Excellency Chair Kalonzo Musyoka has raised that issue. We've had concerns from our neighbors in Uganda about that G2G. There was some opaqueness to that deal. I would like to know from the CS Energy whether that framework agreement has been tabled in Parliament, whether it was. There has been some lack of transparency to the extent that our neighbors raised concerns, and I think they're making some serious decisions based on what is happening in Kenya. I got from President Museveni's comments, and this is what he said. If you look at his Twitter, that without my knowledge, our wonderful people who are buying these huge quantity of petroleum products from middlemen in Kenya. A whole country buying from middlemen in Kenya or anywhere else. It's amazing, but it's true. This is what is happening. Why not buy from refineries abroad and transport through Kenya and Tanzania, cutting the cost created by these middlemen? We would like to know from the CS, because we are told our Ugandan neighbors, who are our biggest trading partners actually, are considering, of course, engaging Tanzania and other alternative routes, which will also have serious impact. Please enlighten us on that. The other issue is the issue of housing. We know that P.S. Hinga has been very passionate. I was privileged to have served with him in the last regime. And it is true that this was one of the key pillars of the Big Four agenda of the Jubilee administration that we served together. But of course, we ran into headwinds. Kenyans raised concerns. Kenyans went to court. And at the time, we had COVID-19 and other challenges. We did decide, and as government, I think, to shelve it. We know that this regime is equally passionate about this housing issue. But of course, you cannot mourn louder than the bereaved. The bearer of the vision himself actually was able to stand down. Why can't you consider, given the current economic situation, the outcry of all Kenyans, from teachers to the policemen to, professionals, who are literally being forced to, pay for this housing issue? Many of them have taken out mortgages. We heard from the chair of Public Service Commission. They are taking home just about a third of their salaries. Many of them are going into depression. To add this housing levy on top of their very thin pay slips is the most oppressive thing under the prevailing economic situation. Why wouldn't you consider, as we did in the last regime, doing away with this for now, so that you don't have to do everything at once? As experts have said, you cannot load everything at once on this Kenyan who is already overtaxed. The other alternatives that we had, of course, the idea of job creation. There were those infrastructure developments. We did send money to the education sector, construction of classrooms, construction of building of desks. This created local employment. We had the Kazi kwa Vijana, almost 2 billion monthly, putting money in the pockets of young people, creating employment. What we are saying is that you can still create these jobs without forcing this bitter pill of the housing levy on Kenyans at this time. Would you consider those alternatives? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Catherine. Let's hear Catherine.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Chair. I left something for the National Treasury. My point that you had referred to on the, I think we were expecting to hear from the CS National Treasury, because all the experts have said there are too many taxes and you need to review some. On fuel alone, as we heard from our earlier presenters, from road maintenance levy, petroleum development levy, petroleum regulatory levy, railway development levy, anti-adulteration levy, merchant shipping levy, import declaration, all this, plus VAT being doubled from 8 to 16. What Kenyans were expecting from you today is to know which of this you can realistically reduce, give them some relief in the short term, even as you're looking at the long term, and also the issue of the housing levy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Having listened to the team that is before us, you seem to have really explained so much about the cost of living. But what are the efforts the respective ministries and PSs are making to explain the issues of cost of living to the most affected grassroots Kenyans that live here? The country is burning with questions. Why are you not getting out, honestly, to give these answers that you have explained here to us? It is imperative that you move out as ministries, as PSs, to give these explanations to the country. What consideration, again, has been given to the impact of cost of living, especially on women and people living with disability, who bear the biggest burden when there is fuel and tax rises or tax increment. We would like also to hear that. What impact have you done? P.S. Hinga, thank you so much. You have explained so much. I've listened to you time and again. Almost got convinced. But P.S. Hinga, to what extent are women and even people living with disability included in the value chain of housing and manufacture in relation to the affordable housing? In the award of even your contracts or your contracts to the applicants who make to your ministry in application to getting chances of this housing, have you given any consideration to women? I've never heard you talk about that. And finally, I'm still at it on Chirchir. You have only given the comparison of Kenya and other countries and how we are doing better. Is there any other way you can do it better instead of just giving comparison? You have also talked about the opaqueness in prices. What do we do about that? As a person and as CS in charge of that. I think I'll come back later. Thank you.
Yeah, mine is going to be very, very short because a lot has been addressed. I just want to know, because in today's daily nation business of today, there is a suggestion that over 6,000 foreign investors flee Nairobi Security Exchange in 9 months. Is this true? And if this is the case, what could be the cause? Two, I've come to notice from my office in Parliament that since the current projection on the housing, Mr. Chinga, the current projection to the housing fund is about to Kenya shillings 74 billion, if I'm not wrong. And yet there's a proposal to reduce this by about Kenya shillings 10 billion in the current supplementary budget. If this is true, what would be the basis for this reduction, since you have still declared that this housing levy is going to continue? How is it being reduced midstream? Yeah. Then, what is the current collections to the housing fund? Yeah, that's the point for us to know. Yeah. And what framework are you putting in place to defray expenditure from the fund? Finally, there's this vexed question of the exchange rate, Professor Ndungu. Try to explain to me as a layman, really, all that has been said. Then why is it the case that the value of the Kenya shilling is equally depreciating against the other East African currencies? Try to break it down to me. Assume I'm just a layman who doesn't understand those fundamentals. Okay? Yes. Now, finally, Professor Ndungu, of course, as a scholar, assume for the last 10 months or so, it's now a year actually, since the coming into being of the current administration, when all is said and done, and after all the experiments, if I may call them so, yeah, now, what in your view is working and what is not working? And what can you possibly consider doing to address this issue of high cost of living? Because as you know, it's one issue that won't be swept under the carpet very easily. It won't. Okay? So can we leave this meeting with some practical suggestions or recommendations on what the government is going to do to reduce the cost of living? Or do we give up and throw our hands in the air? Tumeshindwa. Then the people can decide for themselves what to do. Thank you.
Well done. I think Senator Mugeni, and then would we allow Bilo to try and make it? I think you can be very brief, yeah? Okay.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Now, the first one is to CS Energy. From the table that I have before me, fuel lands at a cost of 123. When you add taxes, it goes to 217. And it seems taxation on fuel can have an impact on tax collection. I read last week that KRA has missed its target on fuel by 1.2 billion in the first quarter of 2023-2024. And that's a negative effect on our desire to collect taxes. Now, CS, this is the statistics. That's the real position on the ground. What should be the way forward, bearing in mind also that these high taxes have a very high cost, a very high impact on the cost of living? Number two, this issue of subsidy related to the 80 shillings that Kenyans bear as a tax per litre of fuel they consume. They understand it, subsidy is a measure the government puts in place to lower the cost of fuel or the price of fuel so that you cushion the general public. Now, we all agree that the cost of fuel is beyond the reach of many Kenyans as we speak. Some countries like Mexico, President Lopez is using subsidy to cushion the citizen. Doesn't the government feel the pain of Kenyans, the suffering of Kenyans, to consider this issue of subsidy? Now, to the CS Treasury, this process has been very consultative, CS Ndungu. This is maybe to CS Ndungu and housing. Now, listen to the situation on the ground. The chair of public service told us that because of this sudden increase in taxes, including what you are calling an investment on housing levy, civil servants are undergoing serious depression. And those are the Kenyans you tax to give service. They are undergoing serious depression. These are the statistics from the public service itself. About 12,532 public officers have sought psychosocial support in the financial year 2022-2023, a steep rise from a figure of 6,600 in the previous financial year 2018-2019. In terms of what in their pocket, Hinga, is that about 17,000 of the public servants are earning less than 1/3, and they will never benefit from this very ambitious housing development agenda of UDA. So they are not going to be able to take mortgages for the houses you are building. Now, two proposals have been put on the table. The first one is the public service itself, and these are policy shift even as we are waiting for the cost case. They propose that to cushion these poor public officers, you consider housing levy to be taxed at basic, not gross. That has come from the public service itself, control of budget, and parliamentary budget office. The second one is even more, I think, maybe controversial and reasonable. The public service argues that this investment you are doing, there are a number of public officers who have already taken mortgages and you cannot force them to take another mortgage. Their payslip can't take that mortgage. And the public service is proposing that they should be exempted from this additional housing levy so that you give relief to them and boost their performance. What would be your comment? If you permit me, I will ask Biro Kero. Biro Kero, we have worked together before in anti-corruption, and the statistics that we have as Kenyans is that Fuliza has grown spontaneously since the launch of the ASLA fund. How do you explain this when the government has opined that the ASLA fund has been fairly successful? And then maybe finally, there is a comment that was made here by the controller of budget that at times we budget for corruption. This is to you, CS Treasury. Now, state corporation budgets, really, according to the control of budget, can be a conduit for corruption on government money. That being the problem, CS, what would be your recommendation on the way forward? Because the people who have spoken here have said corruption actually contributes largely to the high cost of living. Then the El Nino allocation, CS, has this money been spent or it's lying somewhere? Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can now begin answering sessions, but not before I make just a small comment. You know, I was not here the day Margaret Nyakango made her confessions, or so to speak, but I find her confession to be a typical Kenyan problem. If you read our constitution, Article 228(5), on the responsibilities and the roles of a controller of budget. Allow me just to read it verbatim so that we have it on record. The controller shall not approve any withdrawal from a public fund unless satisfied that the withdrawal is authorized by law. So here you have the person that the Constitution has given the responsibility of ensuring that any withdrawal from the public kitty is her mandate. Then she comes before the committee and tells us, I have seen this being budgeted elsewhere and I don't know how money is being lost. Surely, with that confession, I thought probably we should have asked her to resign. Because if you are allowing withdrawals through what is now being revealed to the committee and called budgeted corruption, then it means either you're incompetent or you are part and parcel of those that are stealing from us.
Information. Order.
Yeah. End of order.
Honorable Chairs, there's a statement which is circulating attributed to the CS for National Treasury. It's dated today. It's a statement in response to the allegations by the controller of budget. I just wanted to ask you answer Professor Ndungu, perhaps address the issue in your statement, because it has just come before us now, on page 2, where you claim that for financial year 2022-2023, approved budget for personal allowances for the office of the controller of budget was Kenya shillings 7.3 million, which was reduced to Kenya shillings 700,000 in the supplementary budget. Yet actual expenditure was only Kenya shillings 50,000. And now come this financial year, you still go ahead to budget for Kenya shillings 7.5 million. What would have informed this budgeting if the previous financial year, the only expenditure was 50,000 shillings? Down from a budget of 7.3 million. Is this what Nyakango was talking about? Finally, thanks.
Yeah. And I think I will answer that, Your Excellency, because I think we are looking at personal allowances and salaries differently. Yes. So
And yet,
I have
Prof,
that. Yeah.
Yet, Prof, before you answer, I want us to lift the work of this committee beyond
incriminating other people, because we may not have the ability, I mean, unless we call them for come and respond. I think there's a principle in law which says at some stage, let the laws lie where it belongs or where it is. I would, therefore, I know that Aaron feels very strongly about this, but I think we need to be able to moderate even ourselves, because there will be things which may be unpalatable. We've heard of new and old state capture. We have heard all those things, and without even bringing names. So I personally think that we should avoid a situation where we reduce this session into discussion of the control of budget. Thank you.
But, Mr. Chairman, I think Aaron was alluding to a statement where he was not there in present, but he's just giving a comment on the same. This is the same control of budget who said she was sent SMSs to withdraw 7 billion shillings and kind of thing.
Via WhatsApp.
Via WhatsApp. So
anyway, I think Bilo had requested to have the first bite so that he can leave. And since you are my budget and finance committee chair, Bilo,
I'll comment.
Please make a comment on that issue. Office of the Control of Budget, so that we are able to know whether what she is alleging is true, or we need to be a bit more prudent with our public officers.
Very well. Thank you very much, Chairman. If you, I think, were there earlier, I did actually talk about that and say the buck stops with the control of budget, because no money can be withdrawn without our express approval, as you read very clearly. So I think...
Yet below, it's not a matter of withdrawal of monies. From what we had from the controller.
The second part, the one on the budget.
Because we should talk about personal emoluments.
The MP raised.
Yes.
I think it's very important.
Okay.
The challenge we have, Mr. Chairman, is Treasury is required to use zero-based budgeting. Then they would look at what did this person spend last year? 50,000? Yes, 50,000. But when you go by incremental system, how much was the budget office last year? The budget figure in the estimates was 7.5. They just start from 7.5 and add something. So this is part of the challenges we have. But it's very clear that notwithstanding whatever has been budgeted, Mr. Chairman, whether it's repeated, our salary is repeated 3 times or 4 times, no withdrawal can be done without approval from the control of budget. I think that's very clear. So in other words, if that money is lost, if for whatever reason somebody used her name to withdraw money, then I think clearly her office would know and should be in a position to. So very close, very, very quickly, Chairman, the questions which were asked. On the hustler, let me start from, not in any particular order, but very quickly. I think that the main challenge on the uptake of hustler, why it's not, in my view, as successful as Fuliza is because it did not meet the expectations for whatever reasons. I think people expected probably the amounts to be higher, or but the fact that the interest rates is only 8%, and Fuliza has a higher percentage, did not stop Kenyans from continuing with Fuliza. And now you'll see that in Fuliza the default rate is nil. With Hustler the default rate is 20%. And the uptake is low, and this is why Treasury, I think, probably was able to reduce it to 5 billion. So I think probably the expectations people had from government
on a lighter note, I heard C.S. Ndungu say he's actually a member of Hustler Fund. Well, I think he does that as a minister responsible, maybe to monitor the uptake or whatever.
Yes,
but I think Mr. Professor Ndungu cannot be that kind of a hustler.
But it's important that we take note, underline what the CS Treasury said about market. Let us incentivize the markets to do their work. If we really looked at what Fuliza is doing, and government looked at, start with Fuliza and probably looked at some of the challenges, they would not need to allocate money to do Fuliza's work. If government looked at incentivize the housing, the construction, the contractors, in terms of tax remissions, in terms of granting bank facilities or lower, bank, so I think then you would not have needed Kenyans to be taxed, 1.5 plus 3% to fund housing. I think the market thing, Bwana CS,
Treasury, if it is important that you put your foot down on your colleagues, that let us not try and do everything as government, because that money will come from taxpayers and we don't have the money. On the IPP, Mr. Chairman, I only want to comment and say that there was a very, very good report in September last year on the independent power purchase agreement by the task force, the presidential task force. We need that one to be implemented. It will address all the challenges we have discussed here. Do we have the political will to implement that power purchase agreement task force report, which was very clear, and eminent Kenyans actually spend a lot of time coming up with what needs to be done to address that matter. On the dollar, I think what the CS, I would advise the CS Treasury to do is, even now under his watch, the challenge that the reason why Kenyans are keeping $8 billion in their commercial bank accounts, and they're not, selling it to the bank, is because of the existence of the dual exchange rate. It is there up to now. Let him do away with that. Why would central bank tell you that the exchange rate is 150? When you go and want to buy it, it's 156, 157. So I think if that is not there, nobody will keep that money. So the question of the shortage or the would disappear. The tax review, I have suggested, that there are actually taxes which are critical, and the most common ones are the levies. These levies are called levies, but they're in forms of taxes, and they're not being used for the purposes for which they were originally intended. This is why I said some of those levies need to be reviewed and need to be removed, really, and they're not adding value except making the cost of production higher. And the ones for fuel has been mentioned, for example. And the ones I have mentioned, things like the one for Agricultural Food Authority, the one RDL, Railway Development, which really it's not being used to service that loan, and so forth. So I think those are some of the taxes that, in my view, needs to be reviewed. Then on the market, the dollar, still on the dollar, I heard the CSA, this thing was managed. But let me tell you, in any country, because of external shocks, to insulate the economy, the manufacturers and businessmen and everyone from sudden volatility, any country you go in this world, central banks do intervene in the exchange rate to avoid that sudden volatility. It is normal. If, for example, the shilling today goes to 200, central bank cannot just sit and wait. Tomorrow, people who are doing businesses, there'll be chaos. You have to try and go to the market. And this is what I think has been happening in the past. And I think that can still happen. But what we are seeing is that there's need to really address that issue. My worry is that government of Kenya seems to depend on IMF. That IMF tells you your sharing is overvalued, and so we just go back and say, okay, and relax. But I think we need to look at the economy critically and to avoid that kind of thing. Mr. Chairman, 2 or 3 others I just want to mention very quickly. One, for the cost of living. For cost of living, I think, and I've said it very clearly in my report, we must review every policy and regulatory proposal in terms of its impact on the cost of living before cabinet and parliament approval is sought. I think this is important because you see every day, a department, a ministry, coming up with something. We're going to introduce this. We're going to charge this. We're going to change this. Every change of policy that has an impact on the cost of living should not be taken, to cabinet and parliament until it has been examined clearly in terms of its impact on the cost of living. I think this is important. There was a bill last year in 2021 before Parliament to amend the PFM, Public Finance Management Act, to give members of Parliament to require that all loans must get prior approval from Parliament before Treasury signs the dotted lines. I think that is critical, gentlemen and ladies. This is critical. Otherwise, we will continue getting Parliament as a rubber stamp, approving loans which have been signed in London, in Korea, in Japan, anywhere. And, I think it's something that law needs to be revisited. It's critical. Chairman, very quickly, the last two I want to mention is that, in my view, to address these challenges on the economy, because there is a disconnect between what Kenyans feel about the state of the economy and what needs to be done and what the government thinks. I think it's time we have a national convention on the status of the economy with the right stakeholders. You have to get, the people who are in business, you have to get the professional and business organizations and forums, you have to get the farmers, the industries, and so forth. Let us discuss really this issue about our economy, because there are challenges. Government does not engage adequately with business. That is the challenge. And so we can't just, as government, come up with rules and regulations, and then businesses feel there sometimes. And there are sectors where people are engaged, but I think there are many, and there's benefit. It will give government an opportunity also to listen. Listen to the farmers. Listen to the industry, to investors, to SMEs. That is very important. Instead of just, a top-down approach. Lastly, I think I want to conclude by saying that the question of spending, as Dr. Hugo said, is critical. Unless we cut our clothes to our size, we will continue to be talking in these forums. And I think the argument by Treasury, and I heard what the CS said, that we cannot just, which expenses will be cut. I think clearly what we know is that if you take a pen and paper and go through the printed estimates, really, there are things which are not a priority. There are things which you can defer. Even needs can be deferred so that you don't get into a bigger crisis. I think it's important we review the question of spending so that we can keep this country in one piece. Otherwise, we will go over the precipice. This is my thoughts. Thank you very much.
We thank you, Honorable Bill Okero. Do we follow that order?
Yeah.
We follow that order. Okay, thank you. Okay, Dr. Abram.
Thank you, co-chairs. I was asked two questions. One, Bilo has responded to a bit, but first I was asked, is it true that 80% of Kenyans, I want to also encourage the PS for housing to refer to national statistics. He referred to documents by other people out there. We have a national census 2019, which is what we use. This is what it says. There are 12.1 million households in this country. They are divided between rural and urban. Rural are 7.4, urban are 4.7. 86%, that is 6.3 in rural, own their own homes. And that's the figure I was referring to. Maybe just to clarify that. Yes, 86. And if you heard my comment, I was saying, what is the need in the rural areas for building houses? Because he said he has written to every member of parliament asking for land. I don't think even any MP owns land in the first place, public land, but that's a story for another day. And 21.3 in urban areas own their own homes. The rest rent. A good number rent. The question is, do they have a problem renting? Is there anything across the world? Most populations live in rented homes, rented houses. Of course, we have a challenge. Is a challenge actually that there are no houses or that people cannot afford mortgages? I think let's address the right challenge. And that's why I say I think there's still a lot to be discussed around the housing. I will not belabor that. What to do with, why say cut taxes on one side, and at the same time cut spending? Isn't it a contradictory? It is not. The reason for that is that the more we discuss this as purely a revenue problem, the more we get it wrong, in my opinion. Because we seem to say all our expenditures are right. I gave an example of the state-owned enterprises. If you go through the levies, a lot of those levies and rates are charged to maintain these state-owned enterprises because they have to get some money to keep them going, because that's basically what they established, and agencies. And in my opinion, I think that it will be of value to, first of all, remember those institutions, just to take us one step back, are also playing in this intergovernmental space, where between counties and national government. Look at the number of them in the water sector. Look at the number of them, in the different frameworks, and we seem to be even creating more with the law. So there is a possibility to actually look at the efficiencies, and the Auditor General is on record, just flagging out expenditures that were not right. If you work on all those numbers, including the 2 billion that the current government has committed to confirm whether it's true that, as per the former president, that we lose 2 billion every day. If you do the math, if you were to cursorily look at that figure, 2 billion per day gives you about 710 billion in a year. That gives you almost the deficit that we are talking about. So there are options, and the options is not just going and saying, let's raid this ministry and cut their expenditure, but it has to be a mix. Look at the tax expenditures, already some improvements there. That is the amount of money we give in terms of rebates. Why not go and reduce that so that we give rebates to Kenyans in terms of their, and the rest is what we've talked about, the fuel. Must we charge everything? Because we are saying we are not in normal times. Yet there is something we can do. The last question, which was about KQ, I think a lot of these state-owned enterprises need to run on a business model. You don't make a profit, you don't run, you shut down. We don't go to save every other company out there. We should actually be saving, because right now, as we hear of capital flight, we should actually be working to save that. So we cannot continue to save companies that are not performing, yet performing, doing business. You know, Kenya Airways, anybody who flies with Kenya Airways, despite the delays here and there, is fairly full. At least I have fallen. It's always fairly full. So I don't understand where the loss comes from, and it's the most expensive, just to also say, you know. Those are my thoughts, and happy to continue with this conversation. Thank you very much.
Much, Abraham. We will now. I think we go to the PS, don't you think so? PS Inga, and then we come to the CSS. But even as you do so, the few houses that Kenyans have put up for themselves get demolished. That's the house, that's your department. And some of them are really very, very expensive houses. And yet we heard from Hassan Omar's Kenya Kwanza government that the demolition be a thing of the past. So what happened in Mavoko is heart-rending. Does it prick your conscience? Does it really? Just for me, I should have put this to you, because you're such a marketer, and I know you. So today we are not going to get you to sweat, but please think about some of those things.
No, you want me to start sweating, and I think I had done pretty well. If I was to answer the questions in a methodical way from the co-chair and the majority leader, he spoke about, other than the hinges, these other items, what is the policy intervention? One, what we have done is we have identified the 69. Number two, we have standardized them. It's very, very important. Why standardization? You know, in Kenya, we don't have a standard door. We don't. Because a door in Kenya is basically the space that you leave after you finish building your house. Meaning that you must get a fundi to come and customize your door. And if we continue on that line, we will never be able to benefit from the large economies of scale. So it is important that, first of all, we standardize, and we have done the standard. We have come up with what is called a Juakali manual, which is available. We have given it to them, and with the standards for those 69 items. The next thing is to take this thing to Parliament so that it becomes now entrenched. We are discussing with our committee whether it is going to be as a bill or as a policy. I understand that there is somebody who had brought in a bill in Parliament. We'll see whether we can be able to ride on it. Your Excellency, the Honorable Vice Chair, I think when we talk about the housing levy being an investment in ourselves, we are actually not. We're not using it incorrectly. We are investing in ourselves. And how do we invest in ourselves?
But is it a tax? You need to come out clearly.
It is a tax. Yeah.
So why do you call it a levy in your presentation?
A levy is a tax.
A levy and a tax, there's no difference.
Actually, just go take the definition of a levy from what do you call it? Wikipedia. It is a tax. Okay.
And the CS calls it an investment. It's a bit
But
confusing.
the effect is an invest. We're investing in ourselves, okay? Because we are taking that money and putting it in productive sectors that are going to be very important in the creation of jobs.
But Mr. Hinga, let's be clear. You say a levy is a tax.
Yes.
Now, my own understanding, we've heard it from here, from various presenters, a task, if it is a housing tax, then everybody, irrespective of who they are, will be subject to that tax.
Correct.
To tax. But if it's a levy, then you can even go on a voluntary basis. Those who want to, because there are people, for example, who are in their 60s, going to retire, or may have retired, and they're paying a housing tax. So they ask themselves, how will this benefit me? Because I'm just about to retire. But if it is a tax, then they, of course, they have to pay. And that is a punitive aspect that Eugene was talking about. Yeah.
I think from the PS, I mean the CS's presentation is calling it an investment. An investment can be voluntary, and you know, according to the priority of either that teacher, that lawyer, that doctor, that policeman. But what is oppressive about this is that you must pay it as an employer. You know, it's cutting both ways, including people losing their jobs because they can't sustain this.
Correct.
Yeah. The CS didn't just refer to it as an investment. He actually qualified it further and said that this is an investment, not a tax.
Yes.
Please help us understand.
Not a tax. Now you are contradicting your own senior colleague there.
I said I'll come and rectify
Okay.
that because it's right up. Let me come at my turn to try and rectify that.
Yeah, but as of now, we are hearing from Bwana that this is a tax.
This is a tax.
And in fact, just CS actually called it an intervention. You know, I heard you say it's an intervention. I knew it was a tax. Everybody knows it was a tax. When we dropped it as an issue of a saving, it was immediately communicated on Parliament as a tax. So I don't know where that misunderstanding has come from the last day of this presentation.
Okay, and
let's clarify. This housing levy is based on an amendment to the Employment Act. So it cannot be a tax.
It is a levy, which is a tax.
You know, now this is one government, but you are mixing us. The taxation was done through amendment to the Employment Act. So it cannot. Yeah.
All right.
Which is which?
I will leave the CS Treasury to handle the issue of the tax because I don't want to speak out of turn. Now, so the question was, you gave a very good example, the Honorable Excellency Co-Chair, about Egypt. And I think that's a very good example. But I don't know whether you've realized that for Egypt to be where they are today, in the year 2014, they made a determination to go on the same journey that we are starting today. They built new cities. They built, how many units they built? Is it 1 million? Huh? They've done between 700 and 1 million units since 2014, the last 9 years. So you're right. But we cannot say we now take our jobs to Egypt.
Not by overtaxing Egyptians.
No, there is a tax.
The context was different, but please continue. I don't want you to sweat for sure.
No. Sweating is biblical according to my CS. So, anyway,
overtaxing is also biblical. You heard of the donkey who spoke to Balaam.
I think you need to be fair to Hinga. Yeah, just let him answer the questions.
Okay.
Yeah, and then let the other clarities, whether it's a tax, whether it's not a tax, be given. And we then come and make recommendations as is, because we are really trying to ridicule a few things here.
Yeah. So we also avoid many distractions as he's speaking. Kindly.
Thank you. So the journey that Egypt took is a journey that we want to take. I know a lot of people say, don't talk about Singapore. Because in the 1960s, it's the same journey they took today. 90% of all Singaporeans live in a publicly delivered house. The issue of using the levy, again, is not unique to Kenyans. We have benchmarked widely. Any country that has ever resolved their housing issues, there has got to be ring-fenced capital. There has got to be long-term capital. So that's why if you go to Mexico, and I know there are some bad examples in terms of Mexico that we have also benchmarked and seen some of the things we must avoid doing. So Mexico has the levy. If you go to our neighbors, Nigeria, they have a levy. China has a levy. We can have a whole study that is actually uploaded. If only we can download and read. The entire benchmarking study is already been given. Now, I think the Honorable Co-Chair, you asked a very fundamental question. That the cost of establishing a manufacturing plant in Kenya is expensive. Now, but I also think if that is a statement of fact, it is incumbent on us as leaders to change that. Because manufacturing does not just happen because you wish it. Manufacturing happens because you have a concrete plan. And that concrete plan must be driven by a demand for something. If there is no demand for something, there is no private sector person who is going to risk their money. That I'm just going to manufacture doors and wish and hope that the houses will be built. The market, as my senior has said, it needs to be nurtured. So we are nurturing the market, okay, by creating that consumptive demand, which is then going to anchor our manufacturing and is going to give us jobs. You know, I dare say that the existential risk of our country today is this issue of unemployment. This must be in every other word that you talk about as members of parliament. We must talk about how do we solve unemployment. And sometimes we put aside our whatever caps that we are wearing so that we can, it's a patriotic duty for all of us to find a solution to this thing called unemployment. You may disagree with how I want to do it. I may disagree with how you want to do it, but let's not run away from the fact that it is a big problem. Now, some statement was made about why don't we take this money and build classrooms? And I find that quite interesting. Because which money are you taking? Because unless you're saying that the housing levy application should go to building classrooms, the reason why we have this housing levy is because there is no fiscal space. There was no other way of funding this agenda. So you needed to come up with a plan to be able to get that capital. But let me assure you that our housing plan is not just about 4 walls and a roof. No. It is a whole ecosystem where we are building schools close to where people live. One of the reasons why we have traffic in these cities of ours, Nairobi, is because our cities have grown in an unplanned way. We have built schools in one end, we live in another end, and we work in another place. That's why we have perpetual jam. So what are we doing? We are making sure that all these homes that we are building, there is a school within walking distance. So go and look at all the affordable housing programs that we have launched. We have a school, we have a clinic, we have a market. Why? Because this is about human settlements. It's not just about housing. So I think that's a very important point for all of us to be able to appreciate. I really feel uncomfortable to try and take on my former boss, Eugene, on something that I don't think is a statement of fact. Number one, Jubilee government never abolished its affordable housing program. Never. I was a PS in charge from day one to the last day. And until the last day, we were still chasing our housing agenda. And I actually want to use this as a very good example as to why we did not succeed and why we are succeeding now. And it goes to, there's nothing that has changed in the architecture. What has changed is that right now, we have got the resources to do it. In the last government, we didn't have it because it went to court, it stayed in court. By the way, the courts never ruled. It stayed in court, it was frustrated. There were like 13 cases being opened every day. We know how it works in Kenya. But then eventually, the former president in December of 2019, I remember very well because it was Jamhuri Day, he directed that we move it from mandatory to voluntary. Now, let me tell you what the effect was. The effect was we had projected to be collecting somewhere between 6 and 7 billion a month. But between 2019 to 2022, when the Jubilee government came to an end, we had not collected more than 1.8 billion. Many years, we only collected less than 1.8. We collected less than 2 billion. Yet, we were hoping that we were going to collect 6 to 7 billion. So that is really the crux of the issue. It is not that it was a bad plan. It's not that this plan has fundamentally changed. The only thing that has changed is that we have now a funding mechanism. And even during COVID time, we were looking at sectors that we were going to revive, and housing was still one of the sectors. Unfortunately, there was no money. So if the taxpayers' existing funds cannot fund that agenda, then it did not take off. So if we go back to the fundamental reason why we are so passionate about housing, its importance in the economy, its importance in the creation of jobs, we can already see. I dare actually request this committee that next time you come and accompany me, we go to Mukuru Kojenga, here, meteorological site. You find close to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 young people that are working there. Those are jobs we didn't have, but we have them today. Today, we should look at any sector that is going to create jobs, and we must go for it. Kibera, by end of this month, will be having 5,000 people from the slum of Kibera working on that site. Those are people who did not have a job. When you go to Roiro, where we are building some 1,000 units, we have got over 2,000 young people working in those. Homa Bay, same thing. So I think it's important to understand the economics of housing and already the change that is happening. But it is gradual, and as we scale, you will now start to feel it. Then let me go to the Honorable Wambilinga. Wambilianga, sorry. My apologies for that. I think you're lucky I didn't exchange the R and the L there. So it will have been worse. Joking. One of the critical areas that we have looked at is targeted groups. This affirmative action, because this program is actually finally going to have us realize the social dividend that is in our laws but has never been implemented, the 30% rule. That's why when we went to Starehe, when we were launching Starehe, we took a women group from Babadogo. They are part of what is called the Build Her. And by the way, those young ladies, most of them single mothers, are building wonderful products. They are doing all our joineries and our finishes. They are doing an excellent job. As though you knew I was coming here, this morning I was just chatting with the advisor to the president on gender, because I have gone out there and said, where are the women in construction? Because we have ring-fenced it. We want the women in construction to take advantage of this particular agenda. So people living with disabilities, women and young people are a key focus on this agenda, and there is something in there for them. And so in the coming days, as we roll out, you should be able to see that we are launching all these various chapters at the same time. Honorable Wandai, who I must disclose that is a good friend of mine. Honorable Wandai supported me in the housing levy in the last government. And when I saw him arguing so hard against it this time around, and I know he'll say it's the cost of living. Anyway, we will have that drink because... Now, there is a question that you have asked about the 7.5 billion that has been cut. It's not 10 billion, it is about 7.5 billion. I think unless they increased it, it will have changed. But the last time I checked was 7.5 billion. So CS, I hope is not...
We are meeting the teams.
I'm going to Bunge after this, actually. So if it is a shock. Now, it is not a cut in the levy, because the levy is absolute.
Yeah.
Okay? What has been cut from my budget was the GOK. I was also drawing down a GOK funding of about 10.8 billion, okay, for my other programs. they are told there's 3 billion which they can't touch. I was told, which is for markets. Okay, those ones I think unless there is an issue, that one they should not be touching. So I suspect it is 7.5. Now you've asked the question, what is the current collection? I want to state that as at the end of October, 31st of October, we had 16.24 billion that had been collected. There was a question you asked about the deferring of expenditure from the fund. I did not really understand what you asked. So I don't know, maybe you want to rephrase it? Okay, thank you. Okay, now, the issue about Public Service Commission is very interesting because I believe, if I'm not wrong, and the CS can back me here, and you can see the handkerchief, the magic handkerchief is out. The CS can back me up here, but I think all public servants got an increase in salary before the effect of the levy. So maybe we can have a sitting with the chair of public service. But you say something which is understandable, that that they're about the head of public service said about 12.5 Kenyans or public servant as going through psychological challenges and so on and so forth. And I understand it is true. And it's not just them. There are even others who have been laid off, and there are others who have never seen what is a job. So, and that's why I say that sometimes, and allow me to say this with the greatest degree of respect, that leadership is a very difficult thing. Leadership is very tough. Because, and especially if you're a politician, because sometimes, some of the decisions you're going to make might have an impact on whether you're coming back again or not. And I think that is important. But I also believe that true leadership is about rising above, our own personal interest and seeing the bigger picture. Today, I reflected and I realized.
And I hope with that you try to wind up.
Okay, that's fine. Sorry, I preach a lot, so I won't do I'll avoid the altar call. On a lighter note. So I reflected and I realized that during the COVID time, I had the chance of being in a room with the former president. And let me tell you, I saw the weight of a country on the shoulders of one man. I can imagine the same thing that is going on with our current president, when every index and matrices are very difficult. And sometimes you have got to guide the country. And so I don't think leadership is an easy thing. So there are many Kenyans today that are 1 meal away from starvation. There are many Kenyans who have no jobs today. And as I say, that should be on our lips. How are we going to create jobs? Let's argue that my plan does not do enough. But let's not say we will not create those jobs. Lastly,